The chapel had been dead for a long time. Its stained glass was cracked. Its pews were dusty. Rain came in through a broken roof and tapped on the stone like tiny fingers. Tonight, the air inside did not feel empty. 5 men stood in a loose circle near the altar. They wore dark coats and gloves. Their faces were half hidden by scarves. They moved like they were scared to make noise, even though no one lived here. A lantern sat on the floor. Next to it was a small metal case. Inside the case, wrapped in cloth, was a silver item shaped like a short handbell. It was old. It had thin lines carved into it, like prayers. One man set the bell down and opened a book. The pages looked too clean for something so old. He began to read. The words were not English. They were not Latin either. They sounded like something that didn't want to be spoken. The lantern flame dipped low. The wind stopped. The stone under the altar gave a tiny groan, like it had just remembered a bad dream. Then the air tore. It did not tear like paper. It tore like skin. A dark slit opened in front of the altar. It grew wider, like a mouth forcing itself open. Cold air rushed out. It smelled like ash and old iron. The men stumbled back. One of them shouted, "Hold it! Hold it!" But the tear did not listen. Something came through. It was big. It was heavy. It hit the chapel floor with a crash that shook dust from the rafters. The men raised their guns at once. The thing on the floor moved. It pushed itself up with one arm, slow and annoyed, like a man waking up on a bad couch. Then it stood. Red skin. Yellow eyes. Horn stumps filed down close to the head. A long coat that looked worn and real, not like a costume. A belt with strange tools and a huge revolver hanging from it. And one hand that did not match the rest. His right hand was massive, like carved stone. It looked older than everything in the room. He looked around, taking the chapel in with one sweep. He sniffed the air like a dog. Then he sighed. "Great," he said, voice low and rough. "Another church?" The man with the book aimed his gun with shaking hands. "Don't move." The red man blinked at him. His eyes went past the gun, past the man, to the book. "Yeah," he said. "That's not a bedtime story." The book reader swallowed. "You are the devil." The red man's mouth twisted like he wanted to laugh, but didn't have the energy. "Buddy, I get called that a lot." He took one step forward. All 5 men fired. The bullets hit his coat. Some hit skin. He did not fall. He did not even lean back. He took the hits like they were hard rain. A few drops of dark blood marked his shirt. His eyes narrowed. His jaw clenched. He did not rush. He did not roar. He just moved. He crossed the space in a blink. His left hand grabbed the nearest man by the collar and slammed him into a stone pillar. The pillar cracked. The other men tried to back away, firing again. The red man ducked low, rolled across the floor, and came up inside their line. His right hand swung once. It was like getting hit by a truck. One man flew over a pew and hit the wall. The pew shattered. The book reader tried to run. The red man caught him by the shoulder and yanked him back. The book fell. The bell rolled across the stone and rang once. The sound was thin, but it made the tear in the air twitch. The red man froze for half a second, like he felt it. His eyes went to his right hand. Then he looked back at the book reader. "You called me," he said. The man's teeth chattered. We. A hiss cut through the chapel. Something crawled out from under the altar. It looked like a man, but wrong. Its skin was pale and wet. Its mouth was too wide. Its eyes were hungry and bright. It moved fast, low to the ground, like an animal. The red man shoved the book reader behind him without even looking. "Stay down," he said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. The creature lunged. The red man caught it with his stone hand. The creature's teeth snapped inches from his face. Its claws scraped across his coat. It screeched. The red man frowned. "Not my first ugly guy in a church," he twisted. There was a sharp crack. The creature's arm bent the wrong way. It screamed louder. The red man drove it back into the altar steps and pinned it there. The creature writhed. Its mouth opened wide to bite again. The red man's revolver was already in his left hand. The gun looked too big to be real. It was polished, heavy, and marked with small symbols. He fired once. The sound shook the chapel. The creature's head snapped back. It fell limp. Smoke hung in the air. The remaining men stared at the body, then at the red man. Their faces went pale. Outside, far away, a siren began to wail. The red man's shoulders dropped, like he was suddenly tired. He looked toward the broken doors of the chapel. "London," he muttered, like he recognized it from a map. Of course. Footsteps echoed outside. Shouts. More sirens. The red man turned, scanning the chapel again. That was when he saw the civilians. 2 people had been hiding behind a fallen pew near the side aisle. A woman in a wet jacket. A teenage boy with a bleeding lip. Their eyes were wide. Their bodies were shaking. They had probably come inside to get out of the rain. Now they were trapped with monsters. The red man's face softened, just a little. "Hey," he said, voice gentler. "You 2 okay?" The boy tried to speak and only a squeak came out. The woman pulled him closer. She stared at the red man's horns, his eyes, his hand. Fear flooded her face. He lifted both hands, palms out, slow and clear. "I'm not here for you," he said. I'm the opposite of that most days." The woman did not understand the words, but she understood the calm. The red man stepped toward them, slow. Then the chapel doors blew open. A team in dark tactical gear poured in, guns up, lights sweeping. "Contact!" one shouted. Their beams landed on the red man. For a moment, no one moved. The red man stood between the armed men and the civilians. His coat was torn. His shirt had blood on it. The huge gun hung at his side. He looked like a nightmare that had learned manners. The team's leader stepped forward. A young woman with blonde hair pulled back tight. Her eyes were sharp. Her face was tense but steady. She was holding a big rifle, but she held it like she knew it might not matter. She stared at the pale corpse by the altar, then at the red man. "What are you?" she asked. The red man's eyes flicked to her. He smelled something on her. Not human. He did not say it out loud. He just nodded once, like he filed it away. "Long story," he said. The team's guns tightened. Fingers on triggers. The red man raised his hands again. "I didn't kill the people," he said. "Just the thing that tried to eat 'em." The blonde woman's gaze snapped to the civilians. The woman and boy were shaking, alive. The blonde woman took one step. "Ma'am," she said to the civilian woman, "come to me. Now." The woman crawled forward, pulling the boy with her. The red man moved aside to make room. He stayed between the team and the dead creature, like he was guarding a line. The civilians reached the team. One of the soldiers wrapped a blanket over them. The blonde woman did not lower her gun. "Do you have a name?" she asked. The red man hesitated. Not long. Just enough to show he was choosing. "Hellboy," he said. The blonde woman blinked once. The name meant nothing to her, but the way he said it meant something to him. Behind her, a soldier whispered, "Saras, orders?" So that was her name. Saras. Saras kept her eyes on him. "You will come with us," she said, slowly. No sudden moves. Hellboy glanced down at his massive right hand, then at the narrow chapel doorway. His hand could not fit through it without scraping stone. He looked back at Saras. "Your door's too small." Saras did not smile, but her eyebrow twitched, like her brain did not know what to do at this moment. Hellboy took one careful step. His shoulder brushed the stone. The doorway chipped. "See?" he said. "Not even trying." Saris's jaw tightened. Keep moving. Hellboy walked out into the rain. Lights from police cars flashed across the street. People stared. A few screamed. Phones came out. Someone shouted, "What is that?" Hellboy looked up at the gray sky and let the cold rain hit his face. "Yeah," he muttered. "Good question." And somewhere in the dark, something unseen seemed to notice him. Not with eyes, with attention, like a hand on a chessboard, pausing over a new piece. The car ride was cramped. Hellboy's shoulders pressed into both sides of the back seat. His right hand had to rest across his lap like a boulder. The seat made small, creaking sounds every time he shifted. The two soldiers in the front kept glancing back like they expected him to bite them. Sarah sat beside him in the back, rifle angled down but ready. Hellboy looked out the window as London moved past. Wet streets, yellow lamps, people under umbrellas, a city trying to act normal while hiding teeth under its tongue. He had been in cities like this before, not this one, but he knew the shape of it. Sarah spoke without looking at him. "You saved those civilians," Hellboy shrugged. "That's kind of the job." Saris finally looked at him. Up close, her eyes were a strange shade, like she was trying to be human and failing. She held herself like a soldier, but her hands were tight. She was scared and angry at the same time. "You said your name is Hellboy," she said. "Yeah." "That is not a normal name." Hellboy's mouth twitched. "Trust me." "I know." Saris's gaze moved to his right hand. "What is that?" Hellboy looked down at it. The stone skin was scratched in places, but it never really seemed to get damaged. It felt heavy even to him. "My hand," he said. Sarah stared. Hellboy sighed. "Okay. My special hand." Saris did not laugh. She looked like she wanted to ask 100 questions, but she also looked like she was following rules. "You will meet our leader," she said. "Sir Integra." Hellboy nodded once. "Is she gonna shoot me?" Saris hesitated. "Not unless she has to." "That's comforting," Hellboy said. Deadpan. The car turned through iron gates into a large estate. Tall hedges, stone walls, a manor house that looked like it had been built to survive wars. Lights were on inside. Armed guards stood under the eaves, watching the cars arrive. Hellboy stepped out into the courtyard. The guards stiffened when they saw his size. Their guns did not go up, but their hands moved closer to grips. Their eyes tracked his horns, his tail, his right hand. Hellboy kept his hands visible. He hated being treated like a bomb, but he understood why they did it. Saris led him inside. The front doors were large, but Hellboy still had to turn sideways. His shoulder bumped the frame. Wood cracked. A guard flinched. Hellboy stopped. He stared at the crack like it offended him. "Sorry," he said. Sarah stared straight ahead like nothing happened, but her cheeks went a little pink. Inside, the manor smelled like old books, gun oil, and expensive polish. The floors were clean enough to eat off. Hellboy did not want to eat off them. He just noticed. A butler stepped forward. He was older, pale-haired, and moved like he was floating. "Miss Victoria," the butler said, polite as stone. "Sir Integra is waiting." His eyes slid to Hellboy. They did not widen. They did not show fear. They simply measured. Hellboy recognized that look. It was the look of someone who had seen monsters and decided fear was a waste of time. "And you must be our guest," the butler said. Hellboy grunted. "Depends who you ask." The butler inclined his head. "Walter C. Dornez." "Hellboy," Hellboy said again, like he was testing the name in this new place. Walter's gaze dropped to the stone right hand. "That will complicate certain doors." Hellboy almost smiled. "Tell me about it." They walked down a long hallway. Paintings of serious people stared down at them. Their eyes followed Hellboy like they disapproved of his coat. Sarah stopped at a set of double doors. 2 guards opened them. A large study waited beyond. A desk, a fireplace, shelves full of books and weapons behind glass. And behind the desk stood a tall woman in a dark suit. Her blonde hair was cut clean. A cigarette burned between her fingers, steady as a candle. Her eyes were sharp and tired at the same time. Sir Integra Hellsing. She did not look at Hellboy's horns first. She looked at his eyes. She watched him watch her. She saw the calm. The weight. The fact that he did not lower his gaze. "You are not on my list," Integra said. Hellboy's voice stayed even. "I'm not from around here. That much is clear." Integra flicked ash into a tray. "Saras, report." Saras gave a clean summary. Unusual portal. Armed men. A corpse that looked like a ghoul. Civilians alive. Hellboy cooperative so far. Integra listened without blinking. When Saras finished, Integra looked back at Hellboy. "You claim you are not hostile." Hellboy nodded. "I'm not." Integra's gaze slid to the revolver on his belt. "You arrived with a weapon." Hellboy's hand rested near the grip, but he did not draw. "I arrived with a lot of things," he said. "This one's just obvious." Integra leaned forward slightly. "Tell me what you are." Hellboy hesitated again, this time longer. He had said it in 100 rooms to 100 people. It never got easier. "I'm not human," he said. "I work with humans. I protect them. I hunt monsters. I'm good at it." Integra did not seem impressed. "That describes my organization." Hellboy nodded once. "Then maybe we'll get along." Integra's mouth did not move, but there was something in her eyes that looked like interest. "You arrived through a summoning," Integra said. "Those men were using a ritual." Hellboy's jaw tightened. "Yeah." Integra watched that reaction. "You have been summoned before." Hellboy's shoulders rose and fell. "When I was a baby," he said. "It didn't end well for the people who did it." Integra took a slow drag from her cigarette. "You expect me to believe you are harmless?" Hellboy's eyes narrowed. "I didn't say harmless." The room went quiet for a beat. Integra's gaze sharpened. "Good. Honesty is useful." She stood and walked around the desk, never turning her back on him. She stopped a few steps away. Hellboy could smell her. Not blood, not fear, just steel. Integra held up her free hand. On one finger was a ring with a red stone. "The Hellsing organization exists to deal with threats that the public must never understand," she said. "We fight vampires. We fight monsters. We fight people who create them." Hellboy's eyes flicked to Saras. "Yeah, I got the vampire part." Saras stiffened. Integra noticed. "Saras is under my command," she said, calm and firm. "Her condition does not change her loyalty." Hellboy lifted his hands again, small and open. "Not judging," he said. "Just noticing." Integra stepped closer, just enough to make her point. "If you are a threat to Britain, I will put you down." Hellboy stared at her, then nodded slowly. "Fair." Saras blinked at him, like she expected him to argue. Hellboy looked at Saras, and then back at Integra. "I got a question," he said. Integra's eyes did not move. "Ask." "Why didn't you shoot me in the chapel?" Hellboy asked. "Your people had the chance." Integra's lips tightened just a little. "Because you were between the civilians and the ghoul." Hellboy nodded. "That's your answer." Integra tilted her head, just a fraction. "And what is yours?" Hellboy's voice stayed simple. "Because it was the right thing." Integra studied him for a long moment. Then she turned slightly toward Walter. "Walter," she said. "Yes, Sir Integra." "Search him," Integra ordered. "Take his weapon. Secure any tools. Do not attempt to remove the right hand." Walter's eyes flicked to Hellboy's stone hand. Understood. Hellboy lifted his eyebrows. Don't worry, he said. Nobody's taking this. Tried that once. Didn't work out. Walter moved close with calm precision. 2 guards stepped in as well, tense. Hellboy unbuckled his revolver and set it on the table without being asked. The guards looked relieved for half a second. Then the revolver hit the table, and the table sank a little. The wood groaned. Hellboy glanced at it. Sorry. No one reacted. Walter began checking Hellboy's coat. He found small items, a lighter, strange coins, a folded paper with rough drawings of symbols, bullets with markings, a simple rosary that looked worn. Walter paused at the rosary. His eyes narrowed. Hellboy watched him. Friend gave me that, he said. Human. Good guy. Walter nodded once and placed it back gently. They moved Hellboy to another room. It looked like an office turned into a testing space, a metal frame door, a scanner, a few lights that looked like they belonged in a hospital. A technician stepped forward with gloves and a tablet. He did not look happy to be here. Sir Integra wants baseline readings, the man said. Hellboy stared at the scanner gate. The technician nodded toward it. Please walk through. Hellboy took 1 step. The scanner screamed. Not a beep. A full, angry alarm like Hellboy had just walked in with a bomb. Lights flashed red. 2 guards jumped and aimed their guns at his head. Hellboy froze, eyes wide. Hey! Hey! Saris raised a hand at the guards. Stand down, she snapped. Integra's voice cut in from behind the glass window. She had come to watch. Hellboy looked down at the scanner base. That thing doesn't like me. The technician swallowed. It detects. Hellboy lifted his stone hand slightly. The scanner screamed even louder. Integra's eyes narrowed. The hand, she said. Hellboy's jaw set. Yeah. Integra held her cigarette steady. Turn it off. The technician fumbled and shut the alarm down. The silence afterward felt louder than the noise. Integra stared at Hellboy through the window. You will be secured in a controlled room, she said. Not a cell. But you will not wander. Hellboy's eyes hardened. I don't do cages. Integra's voice stayed calm. Then don't behave like a beast. Hellboy held her gaze. I'm trying not to. Walter stepped beside Hellboy. This way, please. They led him down another hallway and into a furnished room with thick walls and a heavy door. A simple bed, a desk, a chair. Hellboy looked at the chair, then at Walter. That chair's not going to make it, Walter blinked. It is a fine chair. Hellboy sat anyway. The chair snapped. The sound was sharp and final. Hellboy stared down at the broken wood like it betrayed him. Saris made a small sound that might have been a laugh, but she strangled it. Hellboy looked up. Told you. Walter's face did not change. We will provide a more suitable chair. Hellboy leaned back against the desk instead. Appreciate it. Integra stepped into the room, smoke trailing behind her like a line on the air. She stood in the doorway, guarded, unshaken. We will speak again, she said. Hellboy nodded. Sure. Integra turned slightly, as if she was going to leave. Then the lights in the room dipped, not like a power outage. Like the shadows got thicker on purpose. The corner of the room darkened first, then the ceiling, then the space behind Hellboy's shoulder. Saris stiffened at once. Her grip tightened on her rifle. Walter's hand drifted toward his pocket. Integra did not move, but her eyes sharpened. Hellboy felt it. That pressure. That presence. Someone else was here. The shadow in the corner peeled open like a curtain. A man stepped out, tall and pale, wearing a red coat like a royal insult. His smile was wide and pleased, like a child who just found a new toy. His eyes were red and bright. Alucard. He looked at Hellboy like he was looking at a cake. Well, Alucard said, voice smooth, amused. "This is new." Hellboy did not stand. He stayed where he was, leaning on the desk, broken chair at his feet. He looked Alucard up and down. "You always enter rooms like that?" he asked. Alucard's grin widened. "Only when I want to," Sarah snapped. "Alucard! Sir Integra!" Integra lifted one finger. Saras stopped at once. Alucard's eyes never left Hellboy. "A demon," Alucard purred. "In my house." Hellboy's eyes narrowed. "Not your house." Alucard laughed softly. "Everything in her house is mine to use." Integra's voice was quiet and sharp. "Alucard." Alucard's grin stayed, but he tilted his head like a polite wolf. "Yes, master." Hellboy's lip curled. "Yeah, I don't like that." Alucard's gaze flicked to Hellboy's stone hand. "And that hand," he said. "That hand smells old." Hellboy felt a small chill. Not fear, just warning. "Don't touch it," Hellboy said. Alucard took one step closer. His movement was smooth and silent. Hellboy did not move away. "You are not from here," Alucard said, voice low. "You are not part of my little war. So why are you here?" Hellboy's eyes held steady. "I got yanked," he said. "I didn't pick your city." Alucard leaned in, close enough that Hellboy could see tiny details in his face. The confidence, the hunger, the amusement. "And what are you?" Alucard whispered. Hellboy's answer was flat. "A guy trying to do his job." Alucard stared for a long beat. Then he smiled wider, like the answer delighted him. "A liar," Alucard said, almost fond. Hellboy's eyes sharpened. "No," he said. "I'm tired." Alucard's laugh was soft. "Tired things are interesting. They have scars." Saras shifted, tense. Walter watched like a blade waiting to be drawn. Integra's gaze stayed on Alucard. Warning. Alucard finally stepped back. He turned his head slightly toward Integra. "May I test him?" Integra's voice was a hard line. "No." Alucard's smile stayed. "Pity." He looked at Hellboy again. "For now," he said, like a promise. Then he melted back into the shadow like he was never there. The lights returned to normal. Hellboy let out a slow breath he did not know he was holding. Saras swallowed. He does that." Hellboy nodded once. "Yeah," he said. "I noticed." Integra took a drag of her cigarette, eyes still cold. "Do not provoke him." Hellboy's mouth twisted. "Wasn't planning to." Integra studied him for a moment, then turned to leave. At the door, she paused and spoke without looking back. "London is under threat," she said. "If you are what you claim, you will have a chance to prove it." Hellboy's voice was quiet. "That's usually how it goes." Integra left. Walter followed. Sarah stayed behind one extra second. She looked at the broken chair, then at Hellboy. "I'll bring a stronger one," she said. Hellboy nodded. "Make it metal." Saras's mouth twitched. She left. Hellboy sat on the edge of the desk, staring at his stone hand. He could still feel that tear in the air from the chapel, like a wound that did not fully close. And he could still feel something else. Not Alucard. Something farther away. Something paying attention. In another part of the city, a man smiled at a report he had not yet finished reading, because the first sentence was already enough. A devil had arrived in London, and war loved new toys. The next day, London tried to pretend nothing happened. Traffic still moved. People still bought coffee. Kids still walked to school with bags bouncing on their backs. But under the normal noise, there was a new rumor. A red monster in the rain. Some people called it a prank. Some people called it a demon. And some people, in rooms with thick walls and armed guards, called it a problem. Hellboy woke early, He always did. He sat on the bed, boots on, staring at the small window. The sky was gray. He didn't like being watched. He could feel cameras in the corners. He could smell guards outside the door. He knew the routine. New place, new people. Same fear. A knock came. "Come in," Hellboy called. The door opened. Sarah stepped in, carrying a tray. On the tray was a mug, a plate, and a thick folder. Sarah set it down on the desk. The desk creaked, but held. She also brought something else. A metal chair. She set it down with both hands. Careful. Hellboy stared at it like it was a gift. Sarah cleared her throat. Sir Integra said, "You should be kept comfortable enough to talk." Hellboy sat in the chair slowly. The chair did not snap. Hellboy nodded, satisfied. "Good chair." Saris looked relieved, like she did not want to explain broken furniture to anyone again. Hellboy picked up the folder. It had pictures inside. The dead ghoul in the chapel, the 5 men in coats, a close-up of the strange bell, symbols drawn in black ink. Hellboy's eyes moved over them fast. Saris watched him. "We don't know who the men were," she said, "but we suspect a group called Millennium." Hellboy paused. "Millennium," he repeated. Saris nodded. "They are connected to vampires." Hellboy frowned. "Nazis?" he asked, like he already smelled it. Saris blinked. "How did you?" Hellboy shrugged. "It's always Nazis," he said, "or cults. Or Nazi cults." Saris didn't know if she should laugh or be upset. Hellboy flipped the page and found a photo of the bell. He stared at it longer. "That thing," he said. Saris leaned closer. It was on the altar. Hellboy tapped the photo with one finger. "That's a focus," he said. "A tool. It helps make a door." Saris's eyes widened. "A door to where?" Hellboy's jaw tightened. "Places you don't want open." Saris swallowed. "Sir Integra will want to know." Hellboy closed the folder. "Yeah," he said. "Let's go talk." They escorted him through the manor again. More guards today. More eyes. More distance. Hellboy did not like the way people held their fear like a weapon. But he also did not blame them. They reached Integra's study. Integra stood by the window this time, looking out at the estate. A phone rested on her desk. It had been used recently. The cigarette in her hand was fresh. Walter stood quietly near the shelves. Sarah stayed near the door. Integra turned and met Hellboy's gaze. "You slept?" Hellboy shrugged. "I sleep." Integra's eyes flicked to the metal chair Saris had brought into the room for him. "We are adapting." Hellboy sat carefully. The chair held. Integra leaned slightly against the desk. "Tell me what the bell is," she said. "And tell me how it relates to your arrival." Hellboy placed the folder on the desk and opened it to the bell photo. "That bell helps anchor a summoning," he said. "The guys in the chapel used it to pull something through." Integra's eyes narrowed. "You?" Hellboy nodded. "Me?" Walter's voice was polite. "You imply you have been summoned before, as a child." Hellboy's face tightened. "Yeah." Integra watched him. "By whom?" Hellboy's answer came in short pieces, like he kept the words on a tight leash. "A cult," he said. "They wanted a weapon, a sign, a way to bring something worse into the world." Integra's cigarette paused halfway to her lips. "And did they succeed?" Hellboy's eyes hardened. "No." Integra studied him. "Because you stopped them." Hellboy's mouth pulled to one side. "Not alone," he said. "And not clean." Integra's gaze did not soften, but it sharpened with understanding. She had heard stories like this before. Not the same details, but the same shape. "You are a demon," she said. Hellboy nodded once. "Yeah." Integra's voice stayed calm. "And yet you fight demons." Hellboy looked at his stone hand. "Yeah." Integra stepped closer. Why? Hellboy looked up. The answer was simple. That was why it hurt. Because people didn't deserve what was coming, he said, and because a good man raised me to be better than my origin. Integra's eyes flicked to Walter for half a second. A human raised you? Hellboy nodded. Professor? Smart. Stubborn. Liked books. Didn't like bullies. Integra took a drag and exhaled slow. So you work for an organization like mine? Pretty much. And you believe you can be trusted? Hellboy's voice stayed flat. I believe my track record speaks. Integra's gaze turned sharp. Track records can be forged. Hellboy stared back. Not mine. There was a beat of silence. Then Integra nodded slightly, as if she respected the spine in his answer. Very well, she said. You will not be kept as a prisoner. Not yet. Saris let out a tiny breath. Hellboy's shoulders loosened just a fraction. Integra raised a finger. Do not misunderstand. You will be watched. You will be tested. You will not roam this city freely. Hellboy's eyes narrowed. I'm not a dog. Integra's voice stayed even. No. Dogs are simpler. Hellboy almost smiled again. Almost. Integra's phone rang. Walter answered it quietly and listened. His expression did not change, but his eyes did. He held the receiver out to Integra. Integra took it. Speak. A voice came through, muffled and tense. Integra listened. Her face stayed controlled, but the air in the room tightened. When she hung up, she looked at Hellboy. A report, she said. A suspected vampire incident. Multiple bodies. Near the river. Saris stiffened. Hellboy stood at once. Integra held up a hand. No, she said, sharp. Hellboy stopped, jaw tight. Integra walked around the desk and stared at him. You will not leave this estate. Hellboy's eyes burned. People are dying. Integra's voice cut like a knife. So are my men, and my duty is to Britain, not to your feelings. Hellboy's stone hand flexed. Walter's gaze sharpened. Saris stepped forward half a step, unsure. Integra kept her eyes on Hellboy, unblinking. If you go into London and lose control, you become a disaster I cannot contain. Hellboy's voice was low. I don't lose control. Integra's cigarette ash fell into the tray. Every monster says that. Hellboy leaned forward. His horns caught the light. His voice stayed steady. I didn't attack your people, he said. I didn't attack civilians. I didn't attack the vampire in your basement. Saris's eyes widened at the last part. Hellboy looked at her. Yeah, he said. I know you got one. Integra's gaze did not move. You have good instincts. Hellboy looked back at Integra. Let me help, he said. Integra watched him for a long moment. Then she turned her head slightly toward Walter. Walter, she said, what is the risk? Walter's voice was smooth. If he is hostile, allowing him out could cost lives. If he is not, keeping him in could cost lives. Integra's eyes narrowed. She hated simple answers. She liked control. But war did not care what she liked. She looked at Saris. Miss Victoria. Saris straightened. Yes, Sir Integra. You will accompany him, Integra said. You will observe. You will report. If he turns, you will withdraw, and you will call Alucard. Saris swallowed. Understood. Hellboy's eyes flicked at the word Alucard, but he did not comment. Integra stepped close to Hellboy. Close enough that her voice could be quiet without losing force. You will follow my commands in the field, she said. Not because you fear me, but because I will not have chaos. Hellboy nodded slowly. Fine, he said. But if I see a kid about to get eaten, I'm moving. Integra's eyes did not blink. Then move, she said, and live with the mess after. Hellboy's mouth tightened. He respected that. Walter handed Hellboy his revolver and tools back, but kept certain items. Hellboy did not argue. Saris led Hellboy out to a black van. Guards watched them go like they were releasing a tiger on purpose. The van rolled into the city. Rain returned, light and cold. Saris sat across from Hellboy in the back, rifle on her knees. "You really don't fear Sir Integra," Saris said, almost accusing. Hellboy looked at her. "I respect her," he said. "Different thing." Saris looked down. "I do fear her," she admitted. Hellboy nodded. "That's normal." Saris glanced at his stone hand. "Do you fear anyone?" Hellboy stared out the window. The city slid by, wet and gray. He thought of 1,000 answers. He gave the simplest one. "I fear failing," he said. Saras didn't know what to say to that. The van slowed near the river. The air smelled wrong even before they got out. Wet stone, oil, and something sour under it. They stepped into an alley near the docks. Bodies lay under a tarp. Police were kept back by armed men in suits. Hellsing's men. A captain met Integra's team and nodded at Saras. His gaze flicked to Hellboy and stiffened. Saras spoke first. "Special asset," she said. "Orders from Sir Integra." The captain looked like he wanted to protest. Then he didn't. He lifted the tarp. The bodies were pale. Their throats were torn. Their eyes were wide, frozen in shock. Hellboy crouched and sniffed the air. Saras watched him, tense. Hellboy's brow furrowed. "Not a normal vampire," he said. The captain frowned. "We found no bite marks, only tearing." Hellboy touched a ragged wound and pulled his finger back. "These weren't killed for food," he said. "They were killed for panic." Saras's eyes narrowed. A message. Hellboy stood. He scanned the alley walls. His eyes caught on a symbol sprayed in dark paint near a drain. A sharp shape, like a cross made from blades. Saras's face went tight. "Iscariot," she whispered. Hellboy looked at her. "Vatican?" Saras nodded. "Hunters," she said. "They call us heretics. They call vampires demons." Hellboy stared at the symbol, then at the torn bodies. "Yeah," he muttered. "Religious types. Love leaving art." A sudden shout echoed from the street. Then another. Then screams. Saras spun toward the sound, rifle rising. Hellboy was already moving. They burst out of the alley and into a wider street near the docks. A crowd was scattering. People ran over wet pavement, slipping, falling, scrambling up again. Something moved through them fast. 3 shapes in long coats, pale faces under street lamps. Not ghouls, not normal men. Vampire soldiers. They moved like trained killers. They shoved people aside like furniture. One grabbed a man by the shoulder and lifted him off the ground with one hand. The man screamed. The vampire's mouth opened. Hellboy crossed the distance and hit the vampire with his stone hand. The vampire flew backward into a parked car. The car's side caved in. The man dropped and hit the ground. Coughing, Hellboy planted himself between the vampire and the civilians. "Get back!" he barked at the crowd. "Move!" People ran. Saras fired. Her bullets hit one vampire in the chest, and it staggered, smoking where the round struck. It did not fall. Its head snapped toward her, angry and hungry. Hellboy's eyes narrowed. "Special bullets," he said. Saras didn't answer. She was already firing again. The vampire sprinted toward her. Hellboy stepped in front of Saras without thinking. The vampire slammed into Hellboy. They both slid across wet pavement. Hellboy's boots dug in. He caught the vampire's coat with his left hand and drove his stone right hand into its jaw. The vampire's head snapped sideways. Teeth broke. Black blood sprayed. It tried to claw at Hellboy's face. Hellboy took the hits on his cheek and brow. It stung. It didn't stop him. He grabbed the vampire by the throat and slammed it into a wall hard enough to crack brick. "Stay down," Hellboy growled. The vampire laughed with a mouthful of broken teeth. It lifted one hand and made a quick sign in the air, like a ritual, like a trigger. Then it spoke a word. It was not English. It was not German. It was something old and sharp. The moment Hellboy heard it, his stone hand pulsed with heat. Not pain. A pull, like a hook behind his bones. Hellboy froze for half a second. Sarah saw it. Her eyes widened. "Hellboy!" The vampire's smile widened. "Key!" it rasped. Hellboy's expression changed. The tired humor drained out like someone turned off a tap. He leaned in close to the vampire's face. "Don't call me that," he said. Low. He drew his revolver in one smooth motion. The vampire's eyes flicked to the gun, amused. Hellboy fired once. The shot was loud enough to make people duck even blocks away. The vampire's head snapped back, and the laughter stopped. Its body slumped, smoking. Sarah stared. Hellboy looked at his stone hand, breathing hard. The heat faded, but the warning stayed in his gut. The other two vampire soldiers had not waited. One had leaped onto a moving bus and ripped open a side window, dragging people out. The other had climbed a building wall like a spider, fast, heading for the rooftops. Sarah fired at the one on the bus. Her shots hit, but the vampire kept moving. Hellboy sprinted. He jumped and landed on the bus roof with a heavy crash that dented metal. The bus swayed. People inside screamed. The vampire looked up, surprised, then snarled. Hellboy grabbed it by the collar and yanked it up. The vampire slashed at his face again. Hellboy turned his head and took the hit on his cheek. Blood ran warm down his jaw. He didn't care. He headbutted the vampire with his horn stumps. The vampire staggered, stunned. Hellboy drove his stone hand into its chest and pinned it to the roof. The roof buckled under the force. The vampire tried to wriggle free, but Hellboy's hand held it like a clamp. Hellboy leaned close. "Who sent you?" he demanded. The vampire grinned through blood. "War," it hissed. Hellboy's eyes narrowed. "That's not an answer." The vampire's grin widened anyway. "London will burn," it whispered, "and the devil will open the door." Hellboy's jaw tightened. He fired again, point blank, and the vampire went limp. The bus driver screamed and slammed the brakes. Hellboy steadied himself, then jumped down to the street. He turned toward the building where the rooftop vampire had gone. Sarah was already tracking it, breathing hard. "It's getting away," she said. Hellboy looked up at the roofline. Rain made the brick slick. The vampire was a dark blur moving fast. Hellboy crouched, then jumped. He did not jump like a normal man. He launched. He hit the building wall, grabbed a ledge, and hauled himself up with one arm, like gravity was a mild problem. Sarah stared, wide-eyed, as he climbed faster than anyone should. On the rooftop, the vampire sprinted toward the edge to leap away. Hellboy caught it by the ankle at the last second. The vampire yelped and kicked, trying to break free. Hellboy swung it like a hammer and slammed it onto the roof. Tiles shattered. Dust rose. The vampire's bones cracked in ways bones should not crack. It still tried to crawl. Hellboy placed his boot on its back and held it down. "You said a word," Hellboy said, voice cold. "That word pulled on my hand." The vampire coughed black blood and smiled. "Good," it hissed. "He will be pleased." Hellboy's eyes narrowed. "Who?" The vampire's eyes gleamed with excitement, like it loved the secret. "The Major," it whispered. Hellboy didn't know the name, but the way it was said made his skin crawl. The vampire's gaze flicked to the skyline, like it expected something grand. Then its body stiffened. Its mouth opened as if it wanted to speak again. But instead, it convulsed and went still. Hellboy's brow furrowed. He leaned closer. The vampire's eyes were still open, but empty. It had been killed from inside. Hellboy stood slowly, staring at the corpse. Saris climbed up through a roof hatch with help from a Hellsing soldier. She was breathing hard, rain on her cheeks. "What happened?" she asked. Hellboy looked down at the dead vampire. "It got shut up," he said. Saris swallowed. "By who?" Hellboy stared out over London. Lights, streets, people running far below. "Same guy who sent him," Hellboy said. "He doesn't like loose ends." Saris's voice dropped. "Millennium!" Hellboy nodded once. Below, sirens wailed again. Police cars rolled in. Hellsing men began pushing them back. Hellboy could see civilians staring up at the rooftops now. They were pointing, taking pictures, whispering. He hated being seen like this, but it was too late. Saris watched him with a new kind of look, not just fear. Awe. "You," she began, then stopped. Like she didn't know how to talk to someone built like a tank who still cared about people. Hellboy exhaled through his nose. "Don't," he said. Saris blinked. "Don't what?" "Don't put me on a pedestal," Hellboy said. "I break chairs." Saris stared. Then, to Hellboy's surprise, she let out a short laugh. It sounded strange, like she hadn't used it much lately. Hellboy looked at her. "We need to get back to your boss," he said. "This wasn't random." Saris nodded quickly. "Sir Integra must be informed." They climbed down. Back at the manor, Integra was waiting in the study. The cigarette was gone now. The room smelled sharper, like she had been on calls for hours. Hellboy stood in front of her desk, coat wet, blood dried on his cheek. Saris gave the report. Vampire soldiers, civilian danger, symbols tied to Iscariot. The name, the Major, the ritual word that pulled at Hellboy's hand. Integra listened without interrupting. When Saris finished, Integra's eyes went to Hellboy. "You felt a reaction in your right hand," Integra said. Hellboy nodded. "Yeah." Integra's gaze hardened. "Explain." Hellboy's voice stayed simple. "They used a word like a command," he said. "It didn't control me, but it tugged, like it recognized something." Integra's eyes narrowed. "A key." Hellboy's jaw tightened. "That's what the vampire called it." Walter's voice was quiet. "A key to what?" Hellboy stared at his stone hand. He didn't like saying it out loud, but hiding it wouldn't help. "A door," he said. "A big one." Integra's face stayed still, but the tension in the room climbed. "And you believe Millennium is attempting to open it," she said. Hellboy nodded. Integra walked around the desk and stood close to him, as if she wanted him to feel the weight of her words. "If this is true," she said, "then your arrival is not an accident. It is part of their war plan." Hellboy met her gaze. "Yeah," he said. "That's what I'm afraid of." Integra's voice went colder. "Then London is not simply under attack." She turned slightly, eyes cutting toward the window, toward the city beyond. "It is being prepared," she said, "for something worse." Hellboy flexed his stone hand once, like he wanted to crush the idea itself. Sarah stood quietly, staring at him like she finally understood what kind of storm had walked into their world. Integra looked back at Hellboy. "You have proven one thing," she said. Hellboy waited. "You will move toward danger," Integra said, "and not away from it." Hellboy's mouth tightened. "That's the job." Integra's eyes did not soften, but her tone shifted. Still sharp, still cautious, yet now practical. "Then we will use that," she said, "on our terms." Hellboy stared at her. He didn't like the word use, but he liked London burning even less. Outside, the rain kept falling, and far away, in a different room, a man in a uniform smiled at his own plans, pleased that the first test had worked. Because now he was sure. The key was here. And soon, London would learn what kind of door a war could open. The next few days were not quiet. Sir Integra Hellsing lived in quiet rooms, but the world outside her walls did not care. Phones rang at all hours. Men in suits arrived at the gate with papers and threats that pretended to be polite. There were requests, and there were orders, and there were questions that were really traps. Integra answered them all the same way, with control. She stood in her study with a fresh cigarette, listening to a government voice on the other end of the line talk about public safety and unknown hostile entities. The words sounded clean, but the fear behind them was not clean at all. There was a creature, the voice said. Eyewitness accounts, video, this is becoming difficult. Integra looked out the window at her estate. Her men moved like shadows on the grounds. Training, guard shifts, routines meant to keep panic away. A creature, Integra repeated. Calm. How poetic. Lady Hellsing. Sir Integra, she corrected. A pause, a swallow. Sir Integra, the voice tried again. The Round Table wants answers. Integra's eyes narrowed. The Round Table did not want. It demanded. It ruled from behind curtains. It loved secrets when it owned them. They may have answers, Integra said. They may even have opinions. But they don't run my house. There was a sharp inhale on the other end. You are harboring it. Integra's mouth did not move. I am containing a situation, she said. You are welcome. She ended the call before the voice could find courage. Walter stepped in quietly, like he had been waiting for a gap between problems. Another summons to Parliament? He asked. Integra tapped Ash into the tray. Yes. And the Vatican? Walter asked. Integra's eyes hardened. They are circling. Walter's gaze moved to the folder on the desk. Photos, symbols, the bell, the cross made of blades. A note Seras had typed with shaking hands. The vampire called him a key. Integra stared at that word. Key. Her organization existed to deal with monsters, but a key was not just a monster. A key was a tool, and tools attracted hands. Where is our guest? Integra asked. In the secure hall, Walter replied. He has been given a new identification badge. Integra's eyebrow lifted slightly. Given. Walter allowed the smallest hint of humor. He broke the first two. Integra's lips tightened. Not a smile, but close. Tell Miss Victoria to bring him, she said, and tell her to keep him away from the antique doors. Walter bowed. As you wish. When Saris arrived with Hellboy, Integra watched them both. Saris walked like a soldier trying to hide that her world had shifted. She held her shoulders up, eyes forward, jaw firm. But her hands were still too tight on her rifle strap. Hellboy looked the same as he always did, big, heavy, tired. His coat had been patched where it tore. There was a fresh cut on his cheek. It was healing fast, but not gone. He wore an ID badge on a thick metal clip now. Integra noticed it first, because she noticed everything. It read, H. Boy, in simple block letters. Hellboy saw her glance and snorted. They ran out of room, he muttered. Saris tried not to look amused. She failed. Integra gestured to the chair in front of her desk. It was not the usual chair. Walter had replaced it with something plain and strong. Hellboy sat carefully anyway, like he didn't trust furniture. It held. Hellboy nodded once, satisfied. Integra leaned forward. We have a new problem, she said. Hellboy's eyes narrowed. We already got a bunch. Integra flicked her cigarette aside and spoke like she was reading a list of threats, not a feeling. Public panic is rising, she said. The police have reports of a demon and vampire soldiers near the river. That does not remain contained for long. Hellboy's jaw tightened. People saw too much. Yes, Integra said, and the Vatican has heard enough. Saras shifted at that. Hellboy looked between them. They coming for me? Integra's voice stayed level. They are coming for anything they can label as evil, she said. That includes you. That includes Saras. That includes my authority. It is not personal. They are simply consistent. Hellboy leaned back a little in the chair. The metal creaked, but did not bend. Okay, he said. So what's the plan? Integra held his gaze. The plan is to learn what you are in this context, she said. Not just what you claim, who wants you, who called you, and what your hand unlocks. Hellboy's stone fingers flexed once, slow. I'm not unlocking anything for anybody. Integra nodded. Then we must make sure they cannot force you. Walter stepped forward and placed a thin report on the desk. We have identified traces of the ritual ink used in the chapel, he said. It contains rare compounds, difficult to obtain without access to military surplus. Hellboy frowned. That's your millennium? Walter's eyes stayed calm. It suggests training, funding, and supply chains, he said. Not street cultists. Setra swallowed. They sent vampire soldiers like it was nothing, she said quietly. They wanted panic. Hellboy looked at her. They wanted a test, he said. And it worked. Integra's voice sharpened. We do not panic, she said. Hellboy didn't argue. He just looked down at the report, and then away, thinking. He had walked into wars before. He knew the smell of them. Wars didn't start with big battles. They started with small ones that taught you what the other side liked. Integra's phone rang again. Walter answered this time. He listened. His eyes lifted slightly, just enough to show it was serious. He covered the receiver. Sir Integra, he said. We have an uninvited visitor at the outer gate. Integra did not move. Who? Walter's voice stayed polite. He claims he is an agent of the Vatican, he said. His name is Alexander Anderson. Saras went stiff like she had been slapped. Hellboy's eyes narrowed. That guy trouble? Saras's voice was tight. He's very dangerous. Integra's gaze turned sharp. Let him in, she said. Saras snapped her head toward Integra. Sir Integra. Integra's eyes cut toward her. We do not hide in our own house, she said. If the Vatican wishes to threaten me, they may do it to my face. Hellboy's mouth twisted. You sure you want that? Integra's voice dropped low and hard. Yes. A few minutes later, the manor's main hall felt colder. It wasn't the temperature. It was the way everyone stood. Guards lined the walls. Walter was calm as ever, but his attention was sharp. Saras held her rifle, ready to move. Integra stood at the center, like the room belonged to her and always would. The doors opened. A man walked in wearing a priest's collar and a long coat. His hair was short and messy. His smile was too big for a calm room. His eyes were bright with purpose, like he woke up excited to fight. He did not walk like a guest. He walked like a hunter. Sir Integra Hellsing, the man called out, loud and cheerful. What a lovely home you have. Integra did not blink. Alexander Anderson, she said. You are trespassing. Anderson's smile widened. Ah, so formal, he said. As always. His eyes moved past Integra. They landed on Hellboy. Anderson's smile didn't fade, but it changed. It became pleased. Oh, Anderson said softly. There you are. Saras's breath caught. No, she whispered. Hellboy didn't move. He simply stared back at Anderson, reading him in one glance. The man smelled like faith and violence. Hellboy had met that type before. Anderson took one slow step forward. A demon in England, he said. How generous of you to gather the filth in one place. Hellboy's eyes narrowed. Nice to meet you too. Anderson's gaze flicked to Saras. And a false life beside him, he said, voice sweet like poison. A vampire pretending to be a girl. Saras flinched. Hellboy's stone hand made a low, grinding sound as his fingers tightened. Integra's voice snapped. You will not speak to my soldier that way. Anderson's grin returned. Your soldier, he said. How charming. He stepped closer again. Walter's voice was gentle but firm. Father Anderson, he said, please remain where you are. Anderson turned his head slightly, smiling at Walter like they were old friends. The famous butler, he said. I have heard you are sharp. Walter bowed. I aim to be. Anderson's eyes returned to Hellboy. You, he said. What is your name? Beast? Hellboy's voice stayed calm, but it was lower now. Names don't change what somebody does, he said. Anderson's smile twitched. Oh, but they do, he said. They tell us what to call you when we send you to hell. Saras raised her rifle. Integra lifted one hand. Saras stopped. Integra's eyes stayed on Anderson. Why are you here? She asked. Anderson opened his arms wide. To help, he said brightly. Integra's voice stayed cold. Liar, Anderson chuckled. Fine, he said. To remove a threat. Hellboy sighed, as if he didn't have time for this. Listen, he said. I didn't come here to start a holy fight. Anderson's smile spread wider. You didn't come, he said. You were called. And I believe God has given me a chance to answer. Anderson's hand moved. It happened fast. A thin blade flashed from his sleeve, bright and sharp. It flew across the hall toward Hellboy's chest. Saras shouted, No! Hellboy moved. He turned his body, and the blade hit his stone hand instead. It sparked and bounced off like it struck rock. Anderson laughed out loud like he loved the sound. Wonderful, Anderson said. You are real. Hellboy's eyes narrowed. Yeah, he said. So are you. The guards lifted their guns. Integra's voice cracked like a whip. Do not fire, she commanded. You will not turn my home into a shooting range. Anderson took another step, smiling like a kid at a fair. Come now, he said to Hellboy. Show me what you are. Hellboy didn't charge. He didn't roar. He stayed still, shoulders heavy, eyes sharp. You want to fight? Hellboy asked. Anderson nodded eagerly. I want a cleansing. Hellboy's mouth tightened. Not happening. Anderson lunged. He moved faster than a normal man. His coat snapped. His blades appeared like magic, but Hellboy could see the small motions, hidden pockets, quick hands, training. Anderson slashed at Hellboy's throat. Hellboy blocked with his forearm. The blade bit into coat and skin. Hellboy didn't flinch. He grabbed Anderson's wrist and squeezed. Anderson's bones creaked. Anderson smiled through it and twisted like a snake. A second blade came up and aimed for Hellboy's eye. Hellboy jerked his head back just enough. The blade missed by inches. Hellboy shoved Anderson away with his stone hand. Anderson slid across the polished floor and stopped with a soft laugh. Ah, Anderson said. Strong. Hellboy stepped forward, slow. I'm not your demon, he said. Anderson's eyes shone. All demons are demons, he said. Anderson threw two more blades. Hellboy caught one in his stone hand like it was a dart. The other hit his shoulder and stuck. Hellboy looked down at it, annoyed. Then he pulled it out and tossed it aside like a nail. Sarah stared, breathing hard. Walter watched with focus, ready to move if Hellboy lost control or if Anderson went for Integra. Integra did not step back. She watched like a commander watches two weapons collide. Hellboy closed the space. He moved in close and drove a punch into Anderson's chest. Anderson flew backward, hit a pillar, and cracked the wood trim. He landed on his feet. He was smiling. Hellboy frowned. You heal? He asked, noticing the way Anderson's breath didn't falter. Anderson touched his chest and laughed. God's blessings, he said. Hellboy's eyes hardened. Yeah, he said. Sure. Anderson rushed again, blades out, aiming for Hellboy's heart this time. Hellboy shifted his stance, caught Anderson's arms, and locked them. For a second, they were stuck, face to face. Anderson's grin was wild. You feel it, don't you? He whispered. The hate in you, the hunger. Hellboy's voice was low and flat. I feel you talking, he said. That's about it. Hellboy headbutted him, not with a sharp horn, with a heavy skull. Anderson's head snapped back. Hellboy released him and drove his stone hand into Anderson's stomach. Anderson folded, then stumbled. He coughed. Then he laughed again, because he was that kind of man. Hellboy stepped back and raised both hands, palms open. I'm done, Hellboy said. Anderson wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. His eyes were still bright. Done? He repeated. We have only begun. Hellboy's gaze flicked to Integra. Your house, he said. Your rules. Integra's voice was cold. Anderson, she said. Leave. Anderson looked at her like she was a wall he wanted to climb. You protect monsters, he said. Integra stepped forward one pace. I control monsters, she said. That is the difference between a nation and a cult. Anderson's smile faltered for half a second. Then it returned. He pointed at Hellboy. I will see you again, he said happily. I will cut you open and prove what you are. Saris's eyes went wide with anger. Get out, she hissed. Anderson spread his arms as if he was leaving a party early. As you wish, he said. For now. He backed toward the door, still smiling, eyes never leaving Hellboy. Then he turned and walked out, his boots clicking calmly, like he hadn't just tried to kill someone in a manor hall. When the doors shut, the room held its breath. Saris exhaled shakily. Hellboy stared at the blade marks in his coat and sighed. Religious guys, he muttered. Always so friendly. Walter's tone was mild. Father Anderson is unusually enthusiastic. Hellboy looked at Integra. You got a lot of enemies. Integra's eyes stayed hard. That is what duty buys, she said. Hellboy's mouth tightened. He called Saris. I heard him, Integra cut in. Her voice did not rise, but it carried steel. And he will not touch her while I draw breath. Saris blinked. That meant more than Integra would ever say out loud. Hellboy looked away, thinking. Anderson wasn't the main problem. He was a sign. It meant the Vatican was moving, and Millennium was already moving. Integra stepped back into command mode. Report, she said. Hellboy rubbed his forehead with his left hand. The vampire soldiers, he said. They used a word. That word tugged on my hand. That means they're testing ways to use me like a tool. Integra's eyes narrowed. And Anderson's interest suggests the Vatican has heard of it as well. Walter added quietly, fear spreads faster than facts. Hellboy's gaze flicked to his stone hand again. He had lived most of his life with people looking at that hand like it was a door handle to the end of the world. He hated it, but he hated innocent people dying more. I want to find the source, Hellboy said. Integra's eyes sharpened. Explain. The summoning, Hellboy said. The chapel, the bell, the ink. It came from somewhere. Somebody set that up. Somebody paid for it. Somebody knew what to say. Integra's voice was calm but edged. You want to investigate? Hellboy nodded. That's what I do. Saris glanced at Integra, ready to be told no. Integra didn't answer right away. She looked at Hellboy like she was weighing a dangerous option. Then she spoke, slow and firm. You will not act alone, she said, and you will not act without oversight. Hellboy exhaled. Yeah, he said, I figured. Integra turned to Seras. Miss Victoria, she ordered, you will accompany him. Again. Seras straightened. Yes, Sir Integra. Integra's eyes moved to Walter. And you will prepare contingency measures, she said. If he is captured, or if his hand is targeted. Walter bowed. Understood. Hellboy frowned. You got plans for everything? Integra's gaze didn't shift. I try, she said. That is why my organization still exists. Hellboy leaned back, metal chair creaking. Okay, he said. Then here's the part you won't like. Integra's eyes narrowed. Speak. Hellboy's voice was blunt. I'm gonna follow the trail, he said. And if it leads under your city, you might not like what's under there. Integra's jaw tightened. London has many buried things, she said. Most are political. Hellboy's eyes stayed steady. This one might bite. Far away, in a room lit by dull lamps and quiet machines, a man in an old uniform smiled at fresh reports. The Major loved reports. He loved lists and numbers and plans. He loved the way human fear could be measured like fuel. A screen showed a grainy clip, a large red figure on a rooftop, rain falling, gunfire in the distance. The image froze right when the figure's stone hand was raised. The Major leaned in, eyes bright. Ah, he whispered. So charming. The doctor stood beside him. Thin and still, hands folded like a patient spider. The anomaly reacted, the doctor said. As predicted. The Major's grin widened. A key, he said with delight. Not merely a monster. A key. He tapped a file with one finger. Father Anderson visited Hellsing, he said. Excellent. When the holy dogs begin to bark, the streets become louder. The doctor's voice was calm. They will attempt to destroy it. They will attempt to claim it, the Major corrected. Everyone will. England, the Vatican, even Hellsing. He leaned back in his chair, smiling like a man listening to music. And our job, he said softly, is to make sure the key turns. The doctor glanced at another paper. The ritual chamber under the city is nearly prepared, he said. We require one more anchor, a relic. Something holy enough to insult hell itself. The Major's eyes gleamed. Then we take it, he said. And the key? The doctor asked. The Major chuckled. We will not drag him, he said. Dragging is clumsy. He leaned forward again, voice warm with joy. We will invite him, he said. We will pull his heart forward. We will put him in front of civilians, in front of fire, in front of the kind of problem a hero cannot ignore. The doctor's face did not change. He is stubborn. The Major's grin sharpened. So am I, he said. But I have the advantage. He tapped the screen again, right on the stone hand. He's tired, the Major whispered. Tired things can be pushed. He turned his chair slightly toward a wall map of London, pins marking tunnels and hidden doors. Soon, he said, almost kindly, our devil will learn where the door is. And when he learns it, he will come. Because he will believe he is choosing. That was the best kind of trap. At night, Hellsing Manor was not peaceful. It was simply quieter in its violence. Hellboy sat alone in his assigned room, the metal chair now his trusted friend. His ID badge sat on the desk, the clip bent like it had survived a fight. He stared at the badge like it offended him. H-boy, he muttered, real subtle. He heard a soft sound behind him, not footsteps, a shift in the shadows. Hellboy didn't turn fast. He didn't jump. He just sighed. You again, he said. Alucard's voice came from the darker corner near the bookshelf. Always, Alucard purred. Hellboy finally looked over. Alucard stood half in the light, smiling like a predator who enjoyed manners. You're sneaky, Hellboy said. Alucard's grin widened. "And you are loud," he replied, glancing at the repaired doorframe. "Even your presence breaks things." Hellboy rubbed his brow. Yeah. Alucard's eyes drifted to Hellboy's stone hand. "They are afraid of you," he said. Hellboy's answer was flat. "Good." Alucard chuckled. "No," he said. "Not good. Fear makes people either obedient or cruel." Hellboy's gaze sharpened. "And you like that?" Alucard's smile did not deny it. "I like honesty," he said. "Fear is honest." Hellboy leaned back in the chair, heavy. "What do you want?" Alucard stepped closer without walking, like the space simply allowed him. "I want to see what you are," he said. "Not the mask you wear, not the job, the truth." Hellboy's eyes narrowed. "The truth is, I'm tired," he said. "And I'm not interested in being your entertainment." Alucard's grin widened in a way that was almost pleased. "How boring," he whispered, and somehow it sounded like respect. Hellboy stared at him. "You don't scare me," he said. Alucard laughed softly. "You should be smarter," he said. Hellboy shrugged. "Maybe," he said, "but I'm not going to play your game." Alucard tilted his head. "Then play a different one," he said. "Go hunt. Go dig into the city. You will find what you seek." Hellboy's gaze sharpened. "You know something." Alucard's smile stayed smooth. "I know London," he said, "and I know war." "War is already under your boots." Hellboy's jaw tightened. "If I find the door," he said, "I'm closing it." Alucard's eyes gleamed. "Can you?" he asked, voice low. Hellboy looked down at his stone hand again. He didn't answer. Alucard leaned close, speaking like a secret. "Everyone wants to use you," Alucard said. "The Vatican wants to kill you. The Nazis want to turn you. Hellsing wants to point you." Hellboy's voice was quiet. "And you?" Alucard smiled. "I want to watch," he said. Hellboy snorted. "Of course you do." Alucard's grin widened. "Sleep, Hellboy," he said softly. "Tomorrow will be loud." Then he vanished back into the shadow, like a thought disappearing. Hellboy sat still for a while. He didn't sleep right away. He listened to the manor, guards shifting, distant doors, the soft hum of lights. And in his mind, the word the vampire had spoken echoed once, not as a command, as a warning. Morning came with rain again. Saris met Hellboy in the hall, dressed for field work. Her face was set in soldier mode, but her eyes looked tired. Walter handed Hellboy a small kit with simple items: flashlight, rope, a map. Walter's voice was polite. "Try not to destroy any historic architecture," he said. Hellboy stared at him. "No promises." Walter bowed. "That is all I ask." Integra gave final instructions in a short, hard voice. "You will investigate the chapel site," she said. "You will follow any trail you can. You will not engage in reckless behavior." Hellboy's brow lifted. "Define reckless." Integra's eyes narrowed. "Do not be clever," she said. Hellboy sighed. "Okay." Saris led him out. As they passed the front doors, Hellboy's ID badge snagged on the doorframe, and the clip snapped. The badge fell to the floor with a sad little clink. Hellboy stared down at it. Saris stared too. Hellboy picked it up and shoved it into his coat pocket. "I'm not meant for office life," he muttered. Saris's mouth twitched. "No," she said. "You're really not." They left the manor, and the city waited. The chapel looked worse in daylight. Police tape marked off the entrance, but Hellsing had already pushed the police away. Their men stood guard, stern and quiet. Hellboy stepped inside and smelled it right away. Not the rain, not the dust. The ritual ink. The bell had been taken. The bodies were gone. But the air still held the shape of what happened. Hellboy crouched near the altar and ran his fingers over the stone, feeling the carved lines. Saris watched him. "What are you looking for?" she asked. "Patterns," Hellboy said. He looked at the floor. The men had stood in a circle. Their boots had scuffed dust in certain ways. One of them had dragged his right foot. Hellboy followed the scuff marks to a side door. The door led to a narrow hallway. The hallway led to a small storage room. Inside, behind old broken chairs and rotting hymn books, Hellboy found it. A small smear of ink on the wall. Not paint. Ink used for summoning. Hellboy's eyes narrowed. "They moved the bell," he said. "But they left a trail." Saris leaned in. "Can you track it?" Hellboy sniffed the air again and frowned. "Not with my nose," he said. "With my head." He scanned the room. A broken crate. New nails. Fresh wood among old wood. He pried the crate open with his stone hand like it was cardboard. Inside was a thin bag of powder and a strip of metal stamped with a symbol Hellboy didn't like. A gear-like mark. "Millennium," Saris whispered. Hellboy's jaw tightened. "Yeah," he said. Saris swallowed. "So they were here after the summoning." Hellboy nodded. "They set it up," he said, "and they cleaned it." Saris looked at the metal strip. "Why leave this?" Hellboy stared at it. Then he sighed. "Maybe they didn't leave it," he said. "Maybe somebody dropped it." Saris's eyes widened. "A mistake." Hellboy's eyes were sharp. "Or a clue," he said. "Sometimes bad guys like to feel clever. They like you to know they're ahead." Saris's voice dropped. "Integra won't like that." Hellboy stood and slipped the metal strip into a pouch. "No," he said. "But she needs it." He stepped back into the chapel and looked around. His eyes fell on the cracked altar stones. He knelt and pressed his stone hand against the floor. He didn't do magic like a wizard. But he could feel certain things. He could feel old doors. He felt a faint pull. Down. Saris watched him. "What is it?" she asked. Hellboy stood slowly. "There's something under here," he said. Saris's breath caught. "A tunnel?" Hellboy nodded. "Old," he said, "and used recently." Saris glanced at the Hellsing soldiers outside the chapel doors. "Should we tell them?" Hellboy's eyes stayed on the floor. "Not yet," he said. Saris frowned. "Why not?" Hellboy's voice was quiet. "Because if Millennium wants me to find it," he said, "I want to find it my way." Saris stared at him. "That sounds like Integra's kind of thinking," she said. Hellboy snorted. "Don't tell her that," he muttered. They worked fast. Hellboy found a loose stone and pried it up. Under it was an iron ring. He grabbed it with his stone hand and pulled. The floor segment lifted with a groan, revealing a narrow opening. Cold air breathed up from below. It smelled like wet earth and old metal. Saris swallowed. "We're going down," she said. Hellboy nodded. "Stay close," he said. Saris tightened her grip on her rifle. "I will," she said, voice firm. They descended into darkness. The tunnel was narrow at first, then widened. Old brick walls, water trickling, rats scurrying when their light hit. Hellboy moved like he had done this his whole life. Saras moved like she was forcing herself not to think about coffins. They reached a junction where the tunnel split. Hellboy studied the ground. Fresh footprints in wet dirt. Heavy boots. Not Hellsing boots. "Left," Hellboy said. Saris glanced both ways. "How do you know?" Hellboy pointed at the prints. "Because they wanted to walk like they owned it," he said. Saris frowned. "That's not a real tracking method." Hellboy shrugged. "It is when you've met enough jerks," he said. They took the left path. The tunnel sloped downward. The air got colder. And then Hellboy stopped. Saras nearly bumped into him. Hellboy raised his stone hand slowly. In the dim light, something moved ahead. A shape crouched in the dark, low and still. It didn't breathe like a human. It didn't move like a rat. It waited. Saris whispered, "What is it?" Hellboy's voice was low. "Trouble," he said. The thing lunged. It was large, pale, and thick with muscle. Its arms were too long. Its mouth was full of sharp teeth. It moved like a trained animal, not a wild one, a crafted monster. It crashed into Hellboy. Hellboy took the hit and slid back a step, boots scraping brick. The wall behind him cracked. Saris fired. Her shots hit the creature's shoulder and chest. Smoke rose where the bullets struck. It snarled but didn't fall. It turned its head toward Saris. It moved fast. Hellboy grabbed it from behind and yanked it back. "No," Hellboy growled. "You're with me." The creature clawed at Hellboy's face. Hellboy turned his head and took the slash across his cheek and brow. Blood ran. He didn't stop. He lifted the creature and slammed it into the tunnel wall hard enough to make bricks crumble. The creature bounced off and landed on all fours, snarling. Saris's eyes were wide. "What is it?" she asked, voice strained. Hellboy's jaw clenched. "A pet," he said. "A weapon." The creature lunged again, this time lower, aiming to take Hellboy's legs out. Hellboy stepped aside and grabbed its arm. He twisted. Bone cracked. The creature screamed. It tried to bite his stone hand. Its teeth scraped stone, and sparks jumped. Hellboy frowned like he was annoyed at the effort. Then he swung it and slammed it on the ground. The tunnel shook. Water splashed down from the ceiling. The creature still moved, still tried to crawl, dragging itself forward with one good arm. Saris aimed for its head. Hellboy raised a hand. "Wait," he said. Saris froze, finger tight on the trigger. "Why?" Hellboy stared at the creature's eyes. They weren't empty like a normal ghoul. They were focused, like it understood orders. Hellboy leaned closer, voice low. "Who sent you?" he asked. The creature snarled. Hellboy's eyes narrowed. "Yeah," he muttered. "Not a talker." He lifted his revolver and fired once. The creature went still. Saris's breath shook. Hellboy looked at her. "You okay?" Saris nodded fast, but her eyes were still wide. "That thing was built," she said. Hellboy wiped blood from his face with the back of his left hand. "Yeah," he said. "Somebody's making monsters like tools down here." Saris swallowed. "The doctor," she whispered, like the name tasted bad. Hellboy didn't know the doctor yet, but he understood the type. They kept moving. The tunnel opened into a larger underground space, old stone arches, rusted pipes, a forgotten room that looked like it once held supplies for a war long ago. Now it held something else. Symbols were painted on the floor in thick, dark ink. Candles burned down to stubs, crates of bullets. And on a stone table, wrapped in cloth, a holy-looking relic. Saris's eyes locked on it. "That belongs to a church," she said. Hellboy's jaw tightened. "That belongs to a ritual," he said. He stepped closer. The moment his stone hand came within a few feet of the ink circle, the air changed. Not a tear like the chapel. Not yet. But a pressure. A readiness. Hellboy felt the same tug in his hand, faint and quiet, like the door was breathing. Saris whispered, "Hellboy." Hellboy held up his left hand. "Don't touch anything," he said. Too late. A slow clap echoed from the far side of the chamber. Hellboy turned. A tall man stood in the shadows, like he had been waiting for hours. He wore a long coat, a cap, a simple uniform. His face was calm. His eyes were not playful like Alucard's. They were flat. Behind him, the shadows seemed heavier, like they respected him. Saris's voice went thin. "The captain," she whispered. Hellboy's eyes narrowed. "That your Nazi werewolf?" he muttered. Saris's head snapped toward him, shocked by the words. Hellboy shrugged once, like he had guessed the pattern and hated being right. The captain took one slow step forward. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He simply raised one hand slightly, palm down, like he was telling the room to stay quiet. Then he moved. He crossed the chamber in a blink and hit Hellboy in the chest with a punch that sounded like a hammer on stone. Hellboy flew backward and smashed into an arch. Stone cracked. Dust fell. Sarah shouted and fired. Her bullet struck the captain. They sparked, then flattened, like they hit armor. The captain didn't even turn his head. Hellboy pushed himself up, face hard. "Okay," Hellboy growled. "You're strong." The captain rushed again. Hellboy met him head-on. Their fists collided. The air snapped. Hellboy's boots slid across the stone floor from the force. The captain didn't move much at all. Hellboy narrowed his eyes. "Of course," he muttered, and shifted tactics. He didn't try to outpunch. He tried to control space. He moved to the side, grabbed the captain's arm, and slammed his stone hand into the captain's ribs. The captain's coat tore. He slid back half a step, only half. Then he struck Hellboy's jaw. Hellboy's head snapped sideways. Saras's breath caught. Hellboy's knees bent, but he didn't fall. He spat blood and straightened. "Yeah," he said, voice rough. "That's a hit." The captain attacked again, fast, clean, no wasted motion. Hellboy blocked with forearms and shoulders, taking blows that would turn normal men into broken dolls. He returned hits with heavy power. Stone hand, elbow, shoulder check. The chamber shook with each impact. Saras tried to find angles to shoot without hitting Hellboy. She fired when she could. Her bullets did little. She felt useless for a second. Then she remembered what Integra always drilled into her. If you can't beat the monster, change the rules. Sarah swung her flashlight beam across the room, searching. She spotted a thick pipe above the ritual circle, leaking water. It was held by old bolts. Sarah aimed at the bolts and fired. The bolts snapped. The pipe dropped. Water blasted down and splashed across the ink circle. The black lines smeared. The pressure in the air flickered, like something got irritated. Hellboy felt it and understood at once. The ritual needed clean lines. Saras was ruining them. The captain noticed too. His eyes flicked to Saras. For the first time, he changed target. He rushed at her. Saras's heart jumped. She raised her rifle. Hellboy grabbed the captain from behind like a steel trap. "No," Hellboy growled. "You don't!" He hauled the captain back and threw him into the stone table. The relic slid. The cloth fell away. A silver cross-like item glinted in the light. The captain's gaze fixed on it for half a second. Then he moved to grab it. Hellboy lunged and covered it with his body. The captain hit Hellboy again, trying to move him. Hellboy held his ground, teeth clenched. Saras backed away, breathing hard. "Why is he?" Hellboy answered without looking at her. "He's not here to kill me," he said. "He's here to stall me." The captain struck again and again, relentless. Hellboy took it. He returned hits, but the captain kept coming. Not because he was stronger than Hellboy in every way, because he was built for this. To keep the key in the room until the door was ready. And then Hellboy felt something else, a shift behind his eyes. A wrongness. The chamber wall seemed to stretch. The shadows deepened. For a moment, Hellboy's ears caught a distant scream that wasn't real. Saras froze. Her flashlight beam jittered. "Hellboy!" she whispered. Her voice sounded far away. Hellboy turned his head and saw Saras staring at the tunnel entrance like she was seeing something terrible. Her face went pale. "Sir Integra," Saras whispered, voice breaking. "She's—" Hellboy's eyes narrowed. "Saras," he said sharply, "look at me." Saras didn't. She stared at the darkness like it had hands. Hellboy felt it click in his head. This wasn't just a fight. It was a trap in the mind. Zoran, Saris breathed, like she knew the name before she understood why. Hellboy's jaw tightened. He had seen mind tricks before. Ghosts, demons, illusions. They didn't kill you with claws. They killed you by making you run the wrong way. The captain hit Hellboy again, aiming to knock him away from Saris. Hellboy turned with the hit and used the motion. He grabbed a chunk of broken stone from the floor and hurled it toward the far corner of the chamber, where the shadows looked thickest. The stone hit nothing solid, but it hit something. A soft gasp, a laugh, then a voice slid through the chamber, sweet and cruel. "Oh," the voice said. "He throws rocks. How rude." Saris's eyes snapped wide, like hearing the voice broke her frozen fear. Hellboy locked eyes with her. "That's not Integra," he said, loud and clear. "That's not real. It's a trick." Saris swallowed hard. Her hands shook. "I know," Hellboy said, "but look at me. I'm real." Saris blinked fast, her breathing steadied by inches. The captain rushed again. Hellboy met him, but now Hellboy's mind was split between fists and Saris. That was the trap. A hero couldn't ignore his friend. Hellboy chose anyway. He did what he always did. He protected. He moved in a way that kept the captain between him and Saris. And when the captain tried to slip past, Hellboy slammed his stone hand into the captain's shoulder, hard enough to crack the floor under their feet. The captain slid back 2 full steps this time. Not many, but enough. Hellboy grabbed the relic off the table and shoved it into Saris's hands. Saris stared down, shocked. "What? Take it," Hellboy ordered. "Get it out of here." Saris's eyes widened. "But..." Hellboy's voice was sharp. "Now." Saris ran. The captain's eyes tracked her like a machine. He moved to chase. Hellboy grabbed him again. The captain struck Hellboy in the side. Hard, deep. Hellboy grunted. Pain flared. He didn't let go. Saris reached the tunnel and disappeared into it, clutching the relic like it was a live bomb. The illusion voice laughed again, closer now. "You picked the girl," it purred. "How sweet." Hellboy snapped. "Shut up!" He swung his revolver toward the voice and fired. The bullet hit the wall. No scream, only laughter. The captain took the moment and slammed Hellboy into the smeared ritual circle. Hellboy's stone hand landed on the wet ink. The tug returned, stronger now. The air tightened, like a door handle being touched. Hellboy's eyes widened with anger. "No," he growled. The captain pressed down, using weight and force. Trying to keep Hellboy's hand on the circle, Hellboy dug his boots into the stone and pushed back. Their strength met like 2 engines grinding. Then, Hellboy did something the captain didn't expect. He stopped pushing. He went limp for half a second. The captain's force carried forward, and Hellboy twisted, using that forward motion to roll them both out of the circle. Hellboy came up on one knee, panting. The captain rose smoothly, still silent, still steady. Hellboy stared at him, breathing hard. "You don't talk," Hellboy said. "Makes you creepy." The captain didn't react. Hellboy's face hardened. "Fine," he said. "Then listen." He looked at the ritual circle. The lines were smeared now. Not ruined, but weakened. He looked at the tunnel Saris had taken. Then he looked back at the captain. Hellboy lifted his stone hand and pointed it at the captain like a warning. "I'm not your key," Hellboy said. "I'm the guy who breaks locks." The captain attacked again. Hellboy met him one last time. Full force. Stone, hand to chest. The captain slid back. Hellboy followed with a shoulder hit and drove him into the far wall. The wall cracked. The captain pushed off and raised his arm. A sharp sound echoed from the tunnel. A Hellsing radio crackle. Saris's voice, strained and fast. "Hellboy! They're above! They're—" The message cut into static. Hellboy's eyes widened. He realized what this was. Not just stalling. A split. While the captain held him here, other enemies were moving above, chasing Saras, chasing the relic, chasing the path back to the surface. Hellboy snarled. He looked at the captain, then at the tunnel. He made a choice. He didn't try to finish the captain. That would take time. The captain was built to last. Hellboy grabbed a heavy chain from the ground, old equipment left in the chamber, and whipped it around the captain's arms and torso. The captain tore at it instantly, strong enough to break steel. But steel still took a moment. Hellboy needed only a moment. He sprinted for the tunnel. The illusion voice hissed, angry now. "Run! Run! Run!" Hellboy didn't answer. He ran. The tunnel felt tighter on the way back. The wall seemed closer. The darkness felt thicker. He heard gunfire ahead. Saras shouted something. A male voice laughed. Hellboy burst into a wider tunnel junction and saw Saras pressed behind a brick corner, rifle up, firing down the passage. 2 vampire soldiers were advancing fast. Not the crafted beast, not the captain. These were trained killers. And behind them, in the shadows, a woman's voice giggled like it was all a game. Hellboy stepped into the open and fired twice. The vampire soldier in front dropped, smoking. The second soldier leapt sideways and rushed Hellboy. Hellboy slammed him into the wall and held him there. The vampire's mouth opened to speak that old word again. Hellboy smashed his jaw with the stone hand before it could. "Not today," Hellboy growled. He threw the vampire down and stomped once. It stopped moving. Sarah stared at him, breathing hard. "You got it?" Hellboy asked. Saras held up the relic with shaking hands. "Yes," she said. But they were waiting. Hellboy's eyes narrowed. "Yeah," he said. "They wanted us to take it." Sarah swallowed. "Then what do we do?" Hellboy looked back toward the ritual chamber. He could feel the captain tearing free in the distance. He could still hear that laughing voice fading back into the dark. He looked at Saras. He looked at the relic. He made another choice. "We leave," Hellboy said. Saras blinked. "We're just leaving?" Hellboy's voice was hard. "We got what matters," he said. "We don't die in a room built for us to die in." Saras nodded, even though it hurt her pride. They moved fast. They climbed up through the chapel floor and slammed the stone panel back into place. Rain hit them again. London noises returned. But the feeling didn't. Hellboy felt like a hook was still in his gut. Saras clutched the relic under her coat, like it could bite. They rushed into the van. On the ride back, Sarah stared out the window, silent. Hellboy watched his stone hand. He hated that it could be tugged. He hated that it mattered. Saras finally spoke, voice small. I saw things," she admitted. "In the chamber." Hellboy looked at her. "Yeah," he said softly. "Me too." Saras's eyes were wet. "I saw Sir Integra dead," she whispered. "I saw Alucard laughing at me. I saw myself hurting people." Hellboy's voice stayed calm. "That's how they get you," he said. "They show you what you fear. Then they push you to run." Saras swallowed. "Why didn't it work on you?" Hellboy stared forward, jaw tight. "It did," he said. "Just different." Saras looked at him, confused. Hellboy's voice dropped. "They show me what I'm supposed to become," he said. "They show me the end, the thing everybody thinks is inside me." Saras went quiet. Hellboy leaned back. The van seat creaked under his weight. "And then I get mad," he finished. "Because I'm not their story." When they returned to the manor, Integra was waiting. She took the relic in gloved hands and studied it with cold focus. Walter examined it too, careful. Saras gave her report in clipped, steady words, hiding the shake in her voice. Hellboy told the rest. The tunnel, the ritual chamber, the captain, the mind games, the way the air tightened when his hand touched the circle. Integra listened, without interrupting. When he finished, the room felt smaller. Integra set the relic down on her desk with a soft sound. "So," she said slowly, "the door is under London." Hellboy nodded. "Yeah," he said. "And they built a room around it." Integra's eyes narrowed. "And they tried to force your hand onto the circle." Hellboy's jaw tightened. "Yeah." Integra stared at him like a commander seeing the map of a war finally show its real shape. "This is not simply an attack," she said again, voice colder than before. "It is a machine." Walter's voice was quiet. "A machine that requires a key." Integra's gaze stayed on Hellboy. "And it requires you." Hellboy's stone hand clenched so hard the knuckles creaked. "I'm not opening anything," he said, voice firm. Integra's eyes did not soften, but there was something new in them. Not trust. Not yet. But recognition. "You did not take the bait," Integra said. "You withdrew. You protected Miss Victoria. You returned with evidence." Hellboy stared at her. Integra's voice was flat. That was the correct choice. Saras's shoulders loosened by a fraction. Praise from Integra was rare. It was like sunlight in winter. Hellboy sighed. "Doesn't feel like a win," he said. Integra's gaze turned sharp. "War rarely does," she said. Outside the manor, rumors were already spreading. A few civilians had seen two figures climb out of a ruined chapel. One tall and red. One young and pale with a rifle. People whispered about demons and vampires fighting something worse in the dark. The city didn't know names. But the city knew a story was forming. Deep underground, the captain returned to the ritual chamber. He stood in the smeared circle, silent. The doctor watched the water-streaked ink with mild annoyance. Zoran sat on a crate, swinging one boot like she was bored. "He's grumpy," she said. "I like him." The major walked in with a smile that never reached his eyes. "Well," he said softly, "our key runs away." "How brave." The doctor adjusted his glasses. "The relic was taken." The major smiled wider. "Perfect," he said. "Now they carry it for us." Zoran giggled. "And the girl is scared," she sang. "I tasted it." The major clasped his hands behind his back and looked up as if he could see the whole city through stone. "He will come again," the major said, calm and sure. "Not because we drag him, because he chooses to save someone." He turned his head slightly, grin sharp. "Heroes always return," he said. "That is their weakness." And far above, in a manner that smelled like smoke and steel, Hellboy stared at his stone hand and felt the truth settle in his bones. London was not just a battlefield now, it was a lock. And every enemy in the world was reaching for his wrist. A week later, Hellsing Manor had a new rhythm. It was not calm, it was controlled. Men trained in the yard every morning. Radios crackled all day. Maps were pinned and repinned. New locks were installed. Old doors were reinforced. Hellboy became part of the routine in a way that annoyed him. He woke early. He drank bitter coffee that he claimed tasted like burnt regret. He stared at case boards with Walter and Saris, following paper trails and tunnel routes like it was a normal police job. He also broke 3 more things by accident. A stair rail snapped when he grabbed it too hard. A bathroom sink cracked when he leaned on it. And an antique hallway bench gave up the moment he sat down. After the bench, Walter placed a simple note on Hellboy's desk. "Please do not sit on history." Hellboy stared at it for a long time. Then he wrote under it with a thick marker, "I didn't mean to." Saris found it later and made a small sound that almost counted as a laugh. She was changing too. She still had fear in her. That did not vanish. But she had started to stand closer. She asked questions without shaking as much. She practiced moving with Hellboy, not just behind him. And Hellboy, without meaning to, started treating her like a partner. Not a trainee, not a monster, not a liability, a partner. Integra did not say it out loud, but she watched that happen and took note. Her trust did not arrive like a warm blanket. It arrived like a weapon being placed on the table. Useful. Earned. Still dangerous. The door under London stayed on every map. A red circle. A warning. A problem that did not sleep. They wanted to strike first. But striking first meant going underground and risking exactly what Millennium wanted, getting the key close enough to turn. So Integra did what she always did. She waited until she had the right moment. Then the moment came to her instead. It arrived at night, through a television screen. The old set in the operations room flickered, then stabilized on a broadcast that should not have existed. A man's voice filled the room, cheerful and calm. "Good evening, London," the voice said. "Good evening, England. Good evening to every dear soul who believes the night belongs to them." Saris froze with her hand half raised toward the volume knob. Hellboy stood still, eyes narrowed. Integra didn't blink. On the screen, a man in an old uniform sat at a desk, like he was hosting a show. He smiled wide. His eyes shone with joy that didn't belong to a human. Behind him, flags hung like decorations for a party. "The Major," Walter said quietly. The Major leaned forward, smiling at the camera as if it were a friend. "Tonight," he said, "we begin the music." Integra's voice stayed low. "All units," she said into her radio. "Stand by." The Major's smile widened. "And to Hellsing," he said, almost lovingly. "I do hope you brought your pet." Hellboy's stone hand flexed. The Major continued, voice bright. "We have prepared a stage," he said. "We have brought actors. We have brought teeth." The screen cut to footage, live footage, of London streets. People running, screaming. Shadows moving fast. Vampire soldiers poured into an intersection like a flood. They moved in groups, trained and clean. They did not wander. They hunted. Cars crashed. A bus swerved. A street lamp fell and sparked. The Major's voice returned over the chaos. "Please," he said, amused, "do not panic. Panic is the point." Integra didn't hesitate. "Deploy," she ordered. The room snapped into motion. Hellsing soldiers grabbed gear, radios popped with calls. Trucks started in the courtyard. Saris looked at Hellboy, eyes wide and steady at the same time. "They're doing it," she whispered. "The war." Hellboy's jaw tightened. He had seen wars start. This one felt like it was smiling. Integra turned her head toward Hellboy. "You will stay with me," she said. Hellboy looked at the screen again. People ran past a shop window. A small child fell on wet pavement. A vampire soldier turned its head toward the child. Hellboy's body moved before his mouth did. "I can't," he said. Integra's gaze sharpened. "You will obey." Hellboy met her eyes. This was the hardest part. Not fists, not blood. Choice. "Those are people," he said, voice rough. Integra stepped closer, cigarette unlit in her hand like she forgot it existed. "And you are a key," she said. "If you go, you may be dragged where he wants you." Hellboy's voice was low. "If I don't go, people die." Integra held his gaze, cold and steady. Then she spoke, and it surprised Saras. "Then you will go," Integra said, "but not alone, and not blind." She turned sharply. "Walter," she ordered. "Prepare the seal kit. Miss Victoria, you stay on him. If he is pulled underground, you do not follow, unless I command it." Saras straightened. "Yes, Sir Integra." Integra looked at Hellboy again. "This is not freedom," she said. "This is a mission." Hellboy nodded once. "Yeah," he said. "That's fine. Walter handed Hellboy a thick strap with a small metal device on it. It wasn't magical. It was Hellsing practical. Signal beacon. Locator. Hard to break. "Try not to lose this," Walter said. Hellboy stared at the strap. "Where do you want me to put it?" he asked. Walter's expression didn't change. "Somewhere that remains attached." Hellboy grunted and clipped it onto his belt. "If it falls off, it's not personal." Saris checked her rifle and followed him out. As Hellboy stepped through the manor doors, Walter held out a fresh ID badge on a heavy chain. It read, "Hellboy this time." Hellboy paused, surprised. He took it slowly. Walter said, "We have updated the font." Hellboy looked down at the badge. Then he looked at Integra. Integra's face was still stone, but her eyes said enough. "You will bring it back," she said. Hellboy clipped it on. The chain clinked. "Yeah," he said. "I'll try." London streets were louder than the broadcast made them look. The city screamed with engines and sirens and frightened voices that didn't know where to run. Rain slicked the roads. Lights flashed red and blue and white. Hellboy and Saris arrived with a Hellsing unit near a river bridge where smoke was already rising. A bus had crashed into a barrier. People crawled out of broken windows, coughing, shaking, dragging each other. Vampire soldiers moved along the sidewalks, picking targets like they were selecting items from a shelf. Hellsing men opened fire with special rounds. The bullets hit like burning punches. Some vampire soldiers dropped. Others kept moving, faster now, angry. Saris raised her rifle and fired in controlled bursts, not wasting shots. Her face was tight with focus. Hellboy stepped forward like a wall. A vampire soldier rushed him, teeth bared. Hellboy grabbed it by the throat and lifted it off the ground. Its claws tore at his sleeve. Hellboy didn't even look at it. He looked past it at a couple trapped in a car with the door jammed shut. He swung the vampire soldier like a hammer and slammed it into another vampire soldier. Both flew into a concrete post and crumpled. Then Hellboy crossed the street in 3 steps. He bent the car door open with his stone hand like it was thin metal, which it was. The couple stared at him, frozen in shock. "Go," Hellboy ordered, simple and loud. They ran. Saris shouted, "Left!" Hellboy turned. A vampire soldier leapt from the top of a street sign, aiming for Saris's head. Hellboy caught it midair with one arm and threw it into the side of a bus hard enough to dent it. It tried to stand. Hellboy fired once and it stopped. Saris's breath was hard. She didn't thank him. She didn't need to. She just moved closer to his side and kept firing. Hellsing men started pulling civilians into cover behind trucks. Hellboy noticed something that made his gut tighten. The vampire soldiers were not spreading out randomly. They were pushing people in one direction, toward a side street, toward an old service entrance marked with a rusted sign. "Underground access." Hellboy's jaw set. "They're hurting," he said. Saris's eyes followed his. "To the tunnels?" Hellboy's stone hand flexed. This was it. The trap was simple. It was honest. That made it worse. A Hellsing soldier ran up, shouting over the noise. "Sir, orders are to hold this line!" Hellboy stared at the side street. A woman stumbled there, holding a child. A vampire soldier sprinted after them, fast. Hellboy moved. Saris moved with him. They cut through the chaos and into the side street. The noise of the main road faded behind them, like a door closing. The street was narrower, darker. The rain fell heavier between tall buildings. The woman tripped. The vampire soldier lunged. Hellboy's stone hand caught the vampire's face like a clamp and stopped it cold. Its teeth snapped uselessly against stone. Hellboy shoved it backward into the wall so hard the bricks cracked. He didn't finish it. Not yet. He stepped to the woman, lifted her and the child in one motion, and set them behind a dumpster. "Stay," he said. "Don't move." The woman stared at him like he was both nightmare and rescue boat. Saris fired and dropped the vampire soldier with 2 clean shots. Then she grabbed Hellboy's arm. "Hear that?" she asked. Hellboy listened. The street wasn't empty. There were footsteps ahead, many of them, moving below ground. Metal doors clanged. A hatch creaked open. Somebody wanted them to go down. Saris's face tightened. "This is it." Hellboy nodded once. He looked at the woman and child hiding behind the dumpster. He looked at the tunnel entrance. He looked back at Saris. "We go down," Hellboy said. "But we go down fast. We don't chase. We don't wander. We hit the room and ruin it." Saris nodded, swallowing fear like medicine. "Yes." They reached the underground entrance. The metal door was partly open, as if inviting. Hellboy didn't like invitations. He shoved it wide with his stone hand and stepped into the dark. Saris followed. The air below was cold and wet. It smelled like old bricks and electricity. Their flashlights cut thin tunnels of light through the black. And then, like the city above had been a distraction, the real sound began. Chanting. Not loud, not dramatic, steady, like a machine running. Hellboy's stone hand warmed. The tug returned. It wasn't painful. It was worse. It felt familiar, like the door recognized him. Saris whispered, "Ignore it." Hellboy's voice was low. "I'm trying." They moved fast through the tunnels, following the sound. They passed 2 vampire soldiers standing guard. They didn't even get to turn. Saris dropped one with a headshot. Hellboy slammed the other into the wall and knocked it out cold with 1 punch. Because shooting wasn't always the fastest solution. They reached a junction. The air pressure changed. Hellboy knew that feeling. A threshold. They turned the corner and entered a wide chamber. The ritual room was different now. It had been repaired. The ink circle was redrawn, thicker, fresh, clean. Candles burned bright. Cables ran along the floor to devices that hummed quietly, like the doctor had made the ritual half science and half insult to nature. And there, at the far end, stood the captain. Silent. Waiting. Behind him, a line of vampire soldiers formed a wall of bodies. And above the circle, hanging from a metal frame, was the relic Saris had stolen, now chained in place, held over the center like bait. Saris's breath caught. They took it back. Hellboy's jaw tightened. "They never lost it," he said. "We carried it out for them last time. Now they put it where it needed to be." A slow clap echoed again, calm and pleased. The Major stepped into the light from a side passage like he was entering a theater. He smiled at Hellboy. "Ah," he said warmly. "Welcome." Hellboy stared at him. The Major wasn't big. He wasn't scary in the normal way. He was scary because he looked like he enjoyed this. "What do you want?" Hellboy asked. The Major spread his hands. "A story," he said. "A beautiful one." Saris raised her rifle at him. The Major didn't flinch. He didn't even look at her. He looked only at Hellboy's stone hand. "That hand," he said softly, "is history." Hellboy's voice was flat. "It's my hand." The Major chuckled. "Of course," he said. "And yet everyone treats it like property." Hellboy's eyes narrowed. The Major took a small step forward, still out of range, still safe behind his walls of soldiers and his silent captain. "I could drag you," the Major said, "but dragging is ugly. It makes heroes angry. It makes them fight harder." He smiled wider. "So I gave you a choice." Hellboy's jaw tightened. "You put civilians in the street." "Yes," the Major said cheerfully, "and you came, because you always come." Saras hissed. "You monster." The Major tilted his head as if he heard a compliment. "Thank you," he said. Hellboy's voice dropped low. "I'm not opening your door. The Major nodded slowly, like he expected that line. "Then let us speak," he said, "like civilized creatures." Hellboy didn't answer. The captain took one step. The floor seemed to tremble under that single move. Saris whispered, "He's going to stall you again." Hellboy nodded once, eyes locked forward. The Major lifted a finger. The chanting increased. The devices hummed louder. The air in the room tightened like a held breath. And from the side passage, another figure walked in. Father Anderson. He stepped into the chamber smiling like he had been invited to a feast. Saris's eyes widened. "No." Hellboy's gut sank. Anderson's gaze landed on Hellboy first. Then it swept the room and landed on the Major. For the first time, Anderson's smile sharpened into something almost angry. "Nazis," Anderson said brightly. "In London. How rude." The Major smiled back. "Father," he said, almost polite, "welcome to the show." Anderson's eyes moved to the ritual circle, to the relic hanging above it. He laughed softly. "A holy toy," he said. "In the hands of filth." He turned to Hellboy again, grin wide. "And you," he said, "still walking around?" Hellboy's eyes narrowed. "Not the time." Anderson's smile didn't fade. "It is always the time," he said. The Major leaned forward, delighted. "Do you see?" he said to Hellboy. "Everyone wants you. Everyone hates you. Everyone believes you belong to their ending." Hellboy's stone hand warmed again, stronger this time. The circle pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. Saris's voice shook. "Hellboy!" The Major lifted his hand higher. The captain moved. Hellboy moved too. The fight began. The captain hit Hellboy like a cannon. Hellboy flew back, boots sliding, and slammed into a stone column. Dust burst. Hellboy pushed off and met the next strike. Their fists collided. The room shook. Saris fired at the vampire soldiers, keeping them off Hellboy's sides. Her bullets burned through their bodies. They dropped, smoking, writhing, then still. More took their place. Anderson laughed and charged into the vampire line like he was a holy storm. His blades flashed. He tore through them without slowing, leaving bodies falling in pieces that Saris forced herself not to look at. He was not here to help Hellboy. He was here to kill monsters. All monsters. The Major watched like a man enjoying fireworks. "Perfect," he whispered. The captain tried to push Hellboy toward the circle. Hellboy felt it. The angle of the blows, the footwork. The way the captain didn't chase a kill, he chased position. Hellboy shifted tactics. He stopped trading punches and started breaking space. He grabbed the captain's arm with his stone hand and twisted hard enough to crack the floor under their feet. The captain didn't cry out. He didn't slow. He struck Hellboy's ribs. Hellboy grunted, pain sharp, but he held on and yanked the captain forward into a headbutt. The impact echoed. The captain slid back half a step. Hellboy used that half step. He turned and fired at the devices around the circle. 2 shots, fast. Glass shattered. Sparks flew. 1 humming machine died. The chanting faltered for a beat. The Major's smile tightened. "Clever," he said softly. Saris saw what Hellboy was doing and joined in. She stopped shooting bodies and started shooting equipment. Cables snapped. A metal stand toppled. Candles fell and rolled. The circle flickered like it was losing patience. The Major raised his voice. "Doctor," he said. Still calm. "Adjust." From behind a screen of pipes, the doctor stepped out, thin and pale, holding a small device like a remote. He pressed a button. The chanting returned stronger, now coming from speakers hidden in the walls. The circle pulsed. Hellboy's stone hand yanked again, sharper. He stumbled 1 step toward the circle without meaning to. Saris shouted his name. Hellboy clenched his teeth and stopped himself by slamming his stone hand into the floor. The stone cracked. The tug fought him. He fought back. The captain rushed him again, aiming to push his wrist onto the circle. Hellboy saw the move and met it with brute force. He lifted the captain and slammed him down onto his back. The floor shattered in a spiderweb pattern. The captain rolled and rose like gravity was optional. Anderson's laugh cut through the noise, close now. He had carved his way through vampire soldiers and was charging toward the circle too, toward the relic. He didn't care about the Major's plan. He cared about ending monsters. He glanced at Hellboy as he passed, grinned sharp. "You feel it, demon?" Anderson called. "Your true purpose," Hellboy snarled. "Shut up!" Anderson leapt toward the relic, blades raised, intent on destroying it or claiming it. A shadow rose behind him like a curtain being pulled. Blackness, eyes, teeth in the dark. Alucard. He appeared between Anderson and the relic, smiling wide. "Father," Alucard purred, "you always arrive when things get fun." Anderson's eyes lit up with joy that matched Alucard's in a sick way. "Vampire!" Anderson shouted. "Finally!" They collided like two disasters. Alucard moved like smoke and bullets. Anderson moved like a blade that refused to stop. Their fight slammed into the edge of the ritual circle. The air shrieked. The circle pulsed harder, angry now, like it didn't care who bled as long as the hand touched. The Major clapped once, pleased. "Oh yes," he said. "This is music." Saris fired at a vampire soldier rushing her. It fell. Another came. Her rifle clicked empty. Saris cursed under her breath, short, sharp, soldier words, and slammed a new magazine in. Her hands shook only a little now. Hellboy saw the circle pulsing, the relic swaying on its chain, Alucard and Anderson tearing into each other, the captain closing again. Everything was collapsing toward the same center. The trap was tightening. Hellboy made his decision. Not a heroic speech, not a dramatic line, a clear choice. He turned and charged straight for the circle. Sarah shouted, "No!" Hellboy didn't slow. The captain lunged to stop him. Hellboy took the hit and kept moving. He stepped into the circle. The pull became a full grip, like the room grabbed his wrist. His stone hand lifted without permission, drawn toward the center point under the relic. Hellboy's teeth clenched so hard his jaw ached. The Major leaned forward, eyes shining. "Yes," he whispered. Saris ran after Hellboy, firing at the last devices, trying to weaken the ritual. But it wasn't enough. Hellboy's hand hovered inches above the circle's center. He could feel the door behind reality. He could feel it waiting. A thin crack opened in the air above the circle. Not a full tear yet. A slit of darkness. Cold spilled out. The room's lights dimmed. The Major's smile widened like it might split his face. "Turn," he whispered. Just a little. Hellboy stared at the crack. He felt fear for half a second. Not fear of dying. Fear of becoming what everyone said he was. Then the fear turned into anger, solid and clean. Hellboy forced his hand down, not onto the center, but onto the ink lines themselves. He slammed his stone hand hard into the circle's edge. The ink splattered. The lines broke. The crack in the air jerked like something screamed without sound. The pull snapped into chaos. The Major's smile faltered. Hellboy didn't stop. He slammed his stone hand again and again, smashing the circle like he was breaking a lock with a hammer. Stone cracked. Ink smeared. Candles rolled away. The crack above the circle widened for one wild second, then shuddered and collapsed inward like it couldn't hold. The cold vanished. The room's lights surged back. The chanting cut out with a loud pop, like speakers blowing. Silence hit like a slap. The Major stared, eyes wide, then slowly smiled again. But it was smaller now. Tighter. "Ah," he said softly. "So you choose destruction." Hellboy stood inside the ruined circle, breathing hard. He looked at the Major. His voice was low. "I choose no," he said. The captain rushed. Hellboy met him and drove his stone hand into the captain's chest with full force. The captain slid back across the broken stone, boots carving lines in dust. Anderson and Alucard's fight slammed into a pillar, cracking it. Alucard laughed. Anderson laughed too. They were both bleeding in ways that didn't matter to them. Saris grabbed Hellboy's coat sleeve. "We have to go," she said. "Now." Hellboy nodded once. He looked at the Major one last time. The Major held his gaze, still smiling. "Run," the Major said cheerfully. "This is not the end. It is only the next verse." Hellboy wanted to punch him, but punching him wasn't the point. Hellboy turned and ran with Saras. They sprinted out of the chamber, boots splashing through shallow water in the tunnels. Behind them, the captain's footsteps followed for a moment, then stopped. Because stalling was no longer useful. The door had not opened. Tonight, Millennium had lost the turning. But Hellboy knew something bitter as he climbed the ladder back to the street. The Major had seen his choice. The Major now knew what kind of man he was, and that meant the next trap would be built around that choice. Above ground, the night was still burning, but the biggest cold in Hellboy's bones was gone. For now. By dawn, London was scarred. Smoke rose from several blocks. Windows were shattered. Emergency crews worked in the gray light. Police lines stretched across streets like thin walls. Hellsing trucks rolled back into the manor one by one. Some soldiers were missing. Integra stood on the front steps as they arrived, coat tight around her shoulders, face unreadable. Saris climbed out of the van and stood at attention, even though she looked like she hadn't slept in a year. Hellboy stepped down last. His coat was torn again. His cheek was cut. His ID badge hung crooked, chain smeared with grime. Integra's eyes went to the badge first, then to Hellboy's face. "You returned," she said. Hellboy nodded. "Yeah." Integra's gaze sharpened. "Report." Hellboy gave it short and clear. Millennium attack, underground trap, ritual circle repaired, the Major present, Anderson and Alucard interfering. The door nearly forming, Hellboy destroying the circle from inside. Integra listened without blinking. When he finished, she exhaled once, small, controlled. "You did not open it," she said. Hellboy's voice was quiet. "No." "And you did not allow them to force you." Hellboy's stone hand flexed. "Tried." Integra held his gaze. "Good," she said simply. Saris blinked at the word like she wasn't sure she heard it right. Hellboy looked away, tired. Integra stepped closer, voice lower now, meant only for him. "You went into the trap," she said. Hellboy's mouth tightened. "Yeah." "And you broke it," Integra said. "That was decisive." Hellboy glanced at her. "Don't make it sound pretty," he said. "People still got hurt." Integra's eyes hardened. "People are hurt because our enemy enjoys hurting them," she said. "Do not place their cruelty on your shoulders." Hellboy stared at her, surprised. Integra didn't offer comfort often. Maybe she understood something about being blamed for what monsters did. She turned sharply, back into command. "Walter," she ordered, "lock down all tunnel access points we have mapped. Increase patrols. We will expect retaliation." Walter bowed. "At once, Sir Integra." Integra looked at Saras. "Miss Victoria, medical check, then rest." Saras straightened. "Yes, Sir Integra." Saras hesitated, then said softly, "We saw Anderson." Integra's jaw tightened. "Of course you did," she said, as if the world loved being difficult. Saras swallowed. "He fought everyone." Integra's gaze stayed cold. "He always does." Hellboy rubbed the back of his neck. "Your vampire," he muttered. "He showed up too." Integra's eyes flicked toward the manor like she could see Alucard through walls. Alucard does what he likes, she said, even when I dislike it. Hellboy nodded. Yeah, he said. I noticed. Integra stepped back, scanning her people as they moved, counting the living without showing it. Then she looked at Hellboy again. You have a place here for now, she said. Not as a prisoner. Hellboy's eyebrow lifted. As what? Integra's voice was blunt. As a problem I prefer close, she said. Hellboy snorted once. That's almost sweet. Integra's eyes narrowed. Do not test me. Hellboy nodded, then paused. Hey, he said, quieter. Thanks. Integra did not respond, but she didn't tell him to leave either. That was enough. Later, the manor grew quieter in the way it did after storms. Not peaceful. Just catching its breath. Hellboy sat in the operations room, alone, staring at the caseboard. Maps of London, tunnel routes, photos of the ritual chamber, a rough sketch of the circle with notes in Hellboy's thick handwriting. Don't step here, break this first. Bad vibes. His stone hand rested on the table's edge, heavy and still. He could still feel the door, faintly, like a memory on his skin. Saris walked in slowly, medical bandage on her arm, hair still damp from a shower. She didn't carry her rifle now. She carried 2 mugs of coffee. She set one down in front of Hellboy. Hellboy stared at it. I didn't ask. Saris shrugged. You looked like you were going to fall asleep sitting up, she said. Hellboy snorted. I don't fall. Sarah sat across from him. The chair creaked under her. Normal. She watched him for a moment. You weren't scared, she said quietly. Hellboy looked at her. Yes, I was, he said. Saris blinked. You didn't look it. Hellboy took the mug and held it between both hands, as if the heat helped him stay present. I was scared when my hand started moving, he admitted. I don't like being pulled. Saris swallowed. I don't like it either, she said. When someone pushes into your head. Hellboy nodded once. Yeah, he said. That voice, Zorin. She's mean. Saris's mouth tightened. She enjoyed it, she said. Hellboy's eyes hardened. That's why we stop him, he said. Saris looked down at her coffee. Why did you step into the circle? She asked. Hellboy didn't answer right away. He stared at his stone hand. Because the trap was already on me, he said. If I kept backing up, the next time would be worse. More civilians, more fire. More pressure. Saris's voice was small. So you chose the trap, Hellboy nodded. But I chose my move inside it, he said. Saris looked up. That's what Integra does, she said. Hellboy's mouth twisted. Don't tell her, he muttered again. Saris gave a tiny smile. A shadow shifted near the doorway. Saris stiffened instantly. Hellboy didn't move much. He just sighed. Alucard stood in the doorway like he belonged there. Red coat clean, as if he hadn't fought at all. His eyes glittered. Well done, Alucard said. Saras's jaw tightened. We didn't ask you. Alucard smiled wider. You never do, he said. Hellboy looked at him. You were in the room, he said. You could have stopped it faster. Alucard chuckled softly. Could I? He asked. Or would you have hated that? Hellboy narrowed his eyes. What are you talking about? Alucard stepped closer, voice calm and sharp. If I remove all danger, he said, then what are you? A monster sitting in a house, breaking chairs? Saris bristled. That's not… Hellboy lifted one hand slightly. Saris stopped. Hellboy stared at Alucard. You like watching people struggle, Hellboy said. Alucard's smile didn't deny it. Yes, he said simply. Hellboy's voice was low. That's sick. Alucard's eyes gleamed with amusement. And yet, he said, you chose not to open the door. You chose to break it. You chose to save. He leaned in slightly, as if speaking a secret. That, Alucard said, is boring. Saras's face flushed with anger. Then leave, she snapped. Alucard looked at her like he remembered she existed. Then he smiled again, softer. It is boring, he repeated. And that is why it is interesting. He turned his gaze back to Hellboy. You are a monster, Alucard said, but you keep choosing to act like a man. Hellboy stared at him. Alucard's smile widened one last time. For now, he said. Then he vanished into shadow like the room itself swallowed him. Saras let out a breath she didn't know she held. Hellboy took a slow sip of coffee. It's like living with a smug ghost, Hellboy muttered. Saras stared at him for a second. Then she laughed. Quiet, surprised, real. Hellboy glanced at her, almost smiling. Don't get used to it, he said. Saras wiped her face quickly, like she didn't want anyone to see the laugh as weakness. She looked at the board again. Do you think the Major will stop? She asked. Hellboy's eyes hardened. No, he said. Saras swallowed. Then what do we do? Hellboy stared at the red circle on the map. Then he looked at his stone hand. Then he looked at Saras. We keep choosing, he said simply. Every time. Saras nodded, slow. Outside, the manor was quiet. But the world wasn't. In some hidden place beyond London, the Major would be smiling again, already writing the next verse. And in Hellsing Manor, a demon detective sat with a soldier vampire and a caseboard full of locks. Not because he belonged. Not because he was wanted. Because he refused to let monsters write his ending. Hellboy stood up. His metal chair scraped the floor. He walked toward the door. His ID badge swung on its chain. It caught for half a second on the doorframe. Hellboy paused. He looked down. The chain held. He grunted, satisfied, and stepped through anyway. Behind him, Saras watched. Then followed. And the hallway ahead waited like it always did. Full of doors, full of choices, still standing.